You'll notice that we did have some artwork around the room tonight, and I thought that it had been got up here, but it's not. So I'm just going to read the names of the kids that contributed to it. Trevor Pegswin, Amelia Carlson, Nora Cunningham, Lorraine Gonzalez Reyes, Lucy Lohr, Camille Senek, Ilaria Nawak, Lillian Gordon, William Frandlski, Natalie Nowak, Skylar Hopton, Kensley Morse, Hadley Skinner, Austin Heath, Lucas Skuzalek, Catherine Kitty Rapone, Leo Bergnard, Ben Pelosi, and Warren Rusi. These are BGP students who are responsible for the beautiful artwork we have up here in the 6th floor of the Hicksburg.
Thank you very much, students. Absolutely love having it. Okay, let's move to the approval of agenda. Given that the town manager had provided the budget for today to the town council, and we really do not have the time to discuss unless we do have a special meeting. I do propose that we add it as I-5, a budget discussion overview. I know a lot of people probably have not had the chance to read through and let it sink in as to what we were provided and given, or if the assurance was spoken to in that piece. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to add budget discussion for I.
Tony Hope, so moved. Dean Riversford, I'll second that.
Okay, any conversation in regards to that? Okay, given that we do have the 2 board members on Zoom, I would like to just do the roll call vote. I'll start with Tony.
Aye.
Sophia.
Aye.
Galligant, aye. Jaden, aye. Then we can go to Lord.
Aye.
Aye.
I will entertain a motion to approve the dates of the any discussion on this?
I can't hear you guys, and I'm not sure if it's just me or if it's everyone.
Is there an owl setting?
Looks like it's live. Dana, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna just log back off and back on and see if I can hear. Thank you.
Okay, at this time. Hold up. Let's go ahead and vote on that for the approval of minutes. We had first, we had a second. Any other discussion at this time? Dana, anything? No. Okay, we'll do the vote. We'll start with Jaden.
Aye.
Jen.
Aye.
Sophia.
Aye.
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, so they are approved as is. Okay, at this time, we will move to the public participation. I know a lot of people are new faces in here, so I'll just kind of give everyone a little rundown. You were provided 2 minutes on the timer. And if you could provide your name and your address for the record for Lisa to write in the notes. And like I said, you're allotted 2 minutes. And we just want to make it fair for everyone, so everyone gets the same amount of time. I didn't see how many viewers, but I typically try to go from online to a person in the room, online, person in the room. This owl will pick you up as long as it's cooperating tonight. If you just stand over here or over here, it picks up an emotion. What else? I think that's about it. So if you are, so if you're not accustomed to it, if you have something that you'd like to say, if you could please raise your hand online and you'll get added onto the list. And like I said, I will just go from the room to online, back and forth. Any takers in the room? Come on.
Sign up or just-
No, there's no sign up, but you just raise your hand and you come on down. It's like Price is Right. Come on. Yeah, you can stand right there and I'll, like I said, you just list your name, your address, and Dr. Willett will press the start.
My name is Lisa Day Lewis, 63 Tom Green. I'm a resident, but I'm also the president of the local chapter of PFLAG, Tolland, Mansfield. I'm coming here tonight to advocate for a policy to be considered for the LGBTQ plus students at Tolland, Mansfield, Tolland Public Schools. I do think that policy is a great way to institute best practices in school districts and in general. I myself moved here from Mansfield, and my son was already out at that time, but it was due to the hardships that he faced in the school system that led me to start the support group that I am the president of in town. And it was solely due to things that were going on in the school system that led me to need support. So I do feel like policy will help some of the things that we face, some of the difficulties. And I'm just hoping that the board does consider instituting a policy for those students. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I will go to the internet. So we'll have Kate Howard Bender. As you know, list your name, your address, and we will have your 2 minutes. Just make sure that you are unmuted. Perfect.
Hi, guys. Kate Howard Bender, 103 Goose Lane. I have two things that I'd like to just bring up to the attention of the esteemed board. Number one, obviously, I'm really happy that you put the budget on the agenda for tonight, Ms. Lundgren. I really appreciate that. I'm pretty disheartened to see that the town manager has just kind of gone in and cut the board by a significant percentage. Anyway, it's not good. So I'm hoping that you guys can kind of have a conversation about that. I've already reached out to a couple of town councilors. So that's number one. And number two, I've noticed that in the 8 months that have comprised this school year, there have been only 3 policy committee meetings. And that is concerning. Because, legislation is changing all the time. The state does hand down a lot of expectations. There are guidelines that are changing in coordination with and in response to what all is happening in schools. As we know, schools are living, breathing, beautiful places. And so I would kind of question, why is it that we've only had 3 policy meetings in this school year when there's been 8 months? And that would also lead me into the other kind of a side point here, which is, I want to make sure that all of our students, every single one, regardless of gender identity, sexual identity, expression, et cetera, feel safe and secure in their schools. That's the law. And so I'd like to see that on the books as far as a policy. So Chairperson Holt, I'm calling you and I'm asking you to create an explicit policy, sorry about my dog, to ensure that all of our LGBTQIA plus young people and older people, feel safe and secure in their school building. And that really applies to everybody, but specifically to that population of folks with an X. Thank you all. Be well. Sorry.
I don't think she can hear you. No. Thank you, Kate. Now we'll open it up to someone in the room. Come on up. Either side. I'll pick you up.
I'll go with the trend here. Hi, my name is Tilly Murray, pronoun she, her, 8 Lisa Lane. Our town is really something special. So many people came to Tolland for the great schools, as did my family. My family looks a little different. A year and a half ago, I told this town I am a trans woman. I was worried about my family. Would I have to leave? I didn't know how Tolland would react. Would we be ostracized? No. Tolland showed my family love. Tolland showed me acceptance. Now, I can talk all about the importance of a good, accepting LGBTQ policy in our schools, but I have a bigger ask of Tolland. Show the love and acceptance that you showed me to our LGBTQ students. It's hard out there for them. They hear awful things in the news. Creating an LGBTQ policy with love and acceptance will allow these kids to just be kids. These students should not have to worry about bullying, being uncomfortable coming to schools as themselves. This is also important to all of the students. If schools are about preparing our kids for careers, then take a look at the business world. Pronouns and email signatures are becoming the norm. The business world is changing. So why shouldn't the schools keep up with the times? It's time for Tolland to prepare our kids for the future. It's time to put together our LGBTQ school policy with love. It's time to show the kids the love and acceptance you gave my family and myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let's go to Katie Murray. Katie, if you could please unmute yourself. If you could talk, that would be great. Make sure.
Ashley, did you say?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
it's not actually me. My daughter's going to speak.
Oh, perfect. Just have to list your name and address.
Hello, my name is, and I live at. I'm coming here for the LGBTQ plus rights for the school. I've been bullied before for being trans, and I think that should stop. Teachers are supportive, but there's not enough activist people in the school that are helping. We need to stop that. So I'm done.
Thank you. Katie, did you want 2 minutes since you're here?
Sure. Absolutely.
Start the timer. There you go.
Katie Murray, 8 Lisa Lane. The LGBTQ plus IA policy is obviously very important. And I know the board will work with Dr. Willett to ensure that all of our students are welcome and accepted in our schools. This is something that can have a really big impact. We see too many kids who have mental health struggles due to their identity, and we can stop that. The other thing that I would like to reiterate is that there is what I see as a staffing problem at Tolland Middle School. I've sent a number of emails, and thank you for your responses over the weekend regarding the staffing specifically for the Gold team in 8th grade, who have seen significant staffing gaps. And I think that the board needs to get a better handle on what's going on with staffing, specifically at Tolland Middle School, and figure out how to ensure that our students receive continuity of education. It's incredibly important that our 8th graders are prepared for science for high school, but you have half of your 8th grade class who didn't have a science teacher until 2 weeks ago. I hear the new one is great, and I thank the administration for what seems to be a great hire, but there's a problem there, and it's time for the board to work with the superintendent and the other administrators to make sure that our kids are receiving appropriate and consistent educational instruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Hey, given that I let 2 online, so I'll take 2 in the room. So one up and then either way.
Yeah. I support having a policy that helps protect and clarify the rights of queer students within the Tolland schools. Having a clear policy would help us feel safer, more welcome, and more confident within the school. I propose that part of the policy is a more comprehensive set of consequences when students are homophobic or transphobic. When these consequences are enforced by teachers and administration, bullying will hopefully be reduced. Even if people who are anti-queer don't change their beliefs or behavior outside of school, they will at least be less openly homophobic and transphobic in school. One possible consequence pathway, at least that's what I call it, is being first called out on their behavior, such as calling other students slurs in class, and calling them out in the moment. And if they repeat that offense, then they should lose in-school privileges like clubs, sports, and like participating in certain activities. They should also receive detention, and their parents / guardians should be alerted. Further offenses, possibly resulting in suspension or expulsion. And having these consequences just be implemented would really help us feel way safer. Cause as is, I know people who have been bullied this year, last year, and very little was done about it, even if it was reported. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Come on up.
Hello, my name is. Pronouns are he and he, him, she, her, and they, them. I'm a student here in Tolland, and I enjoy having teachers and students that support me as being a queer student. But there's also harassment going around, bullying, and I appreciate students being able to respect me for who I am, and having students that harass me, just walk away from the principal's office or something like that. Just saying, don't do it again is not good enough for me, because they just go back and do it again and again. Every time that someone harasses me, they get in trouble, and they just come back and do it again. I hope that we could make a way that I can feel more safe at school and not get harassed.
Thank you so much. I applaud everyone speaking out tonight. I think this is fantastic, especially I know that it's not easy being like a student and just, finding your voice and speaking to all of us here, which we are just normal people, but I give you guys it takes a lot of courage. So thank you. Let's move on to Heather McCann, the list.
Heather McCann, 62 Crossan Drive. My pronouns are she, her. First, I want to begin by wishing all women and those who identify as a woman a happy International Women's Day. Second, I wanted to acknowledge the loss of an incredible woman this week, Judy Heumann, an American and internationally known disability and civil rights advocate. She passed away at the age of 75. She was known for many accomplishments, including legislation for Section 504, IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Rehabilitation Act, and more. She was instrumental in helping shape policy that protected the rights of those with disabilities and was passionate about the important role that education played in the well-being of all students. Judy advocated for policy that acknowledges and respects the unique and individuality of students and encourages acceptance of the unique differences between them. As a parent of a child with a disability, I'm thankful for her work and how it positively impacts my family. I see, however, the opportunity here for policy development around the LGBTQIA+ community in our school. I hope as a community, we can continue to strive for even greater inclusion and acceptance and protect and embrace the individuality of all of our students. Thank you for all you do. Have a great night.
Back open into the room. Come on up.
Hi, my name is he, him, and I live at. I want to share a bit about myself with you. I'm a senior at high school, the president of our drama club, a part of the state's first high school equity council, and I just recently got admitted into the honors program at UConn. I spent the last 10 years of my high school career pushing myself to the best I possibly can while staying committed and engaged in clubs and the overall school community. I have been thriving. Now I want to reintroduce myself. Hi, my name is. I'm here at P-Flag Tolland Mansfield, and I'm a transgender kid who's been given the opportunity to thrive. If not for the support I've received from the schools, the accomplishments that I listed above would be only dreams that I longed for, but were so far out of reach. I've been able to thrive because I've been seen for all of who Daniel is, opposed to just my transgender identity. But every student should be given the opportunity to reach their full potential. I deeply encourage you to create policies to allow LGBTQ+ youth identifying kids to feel safe and protected at school so they too can thrive. I recently did a project when I interviewed queer students about how safe they felt at school. One of the students said, and I quote, "In situations where you feel unsafe, it's a lot harder to focus or be motivated to work on what you're doing. You actively feel uncomfortable. I spent a substantial amount of time worrying." Another student said, "I tend to be a lot more quiet in those classes where I feel unsafe. I just feel like I shouldn't really talk in those kinds of classes. If I felt safe, I wouldn't be as afraid to ask questions and engage more in class." I just gave real quotes from students who don't feel like they're supported in schools and how detrimental it is to their education. It is crucial to have policies in place to make sure that all students can thrive in the classroom. School systems need to do better so that all students are given the opportunity to reach their full potential. Now you have met a trans person who is thriving because of the support I have received in schools due to the mere fact that I'm able to pass as a straight cis person. I challenge you to give the same opportunity of love and support to the queer students just as I have received.
Thank you very much. Online, Christopher Morgan.
Hi, my name's Chris Moran, 68 Anthony Road. My pronouns are he, him, and I strongly support an LGBTQ+ policy to ensure that all students feel welcome and accepted in school and in our great town. Demonstrating support for this community through a policy can positively impact students, both to feel accepted and to ensure that they feel comfortable in their learning environment to ensure that they can truly thrive in school. Thank you for all you do.
Okay, thank you. I will open it back up to the room.
Hi, my name is, my pronouns are they, them. I live on. I'm here to say that we need a policy to protect the rights of LGBTQI+ students because they are currently failing to be protected. I personally know multiple people who have experienced homophobic and transphobic bullying at Tolland High School, such as being called slurs. No action has been taken about the incidents, including ones that have happened in front of teachers and or that have been reported. One person that I know in particular has had food thrown at them, have been named, have been shunned by their peers. They have been accused of wanting to shoot up the school by their bullies, and when this was brought to staff, the principal and vice principal not only believed the accusations, but kept them in guidance while the rest of the class was learning new material. The middle school's GSA was also forced to change their theme from a GSA to just a general diversity club, which is illegal as they have the right to form any kind of club that they want, as long as other clubs are allowed to exist. I feel that a policy to protect the rights of queer students in the school district would benefit us and make us feel more comfortable at school, because quite honestly, I don't personally feel like 100% comfortable at school, and none of my friends who are queer feel fully comfortable at school either. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Liz Costa.
Hi, Liz Costa, 54 Josiah Lane. First of all, I came really just to speak about the budget. I only took a fleeting glance at it and realized the cut. So I want to say, I hope all of the board members will support and come to the next town council meeting, really pushing for increased spend, not continuing with the reduced spend. And secondly, I didn't intend to speak to this, but we should be so proud of the students. In 6 or 8 years of attending Board of Education meetings, I don't remember when so many students showed up. Their passion is impressive. They're very articulate in what they are looking to have. And I agree with Tilly that we should be doing it with love. However, policies often don't happen until something happens. In this case, things have already happened. So I would encourage you Mr. Holt especially, and the entire board to create a policy that supports our students and their lifestyle. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Let's move to in the room. Oh. You'll be next.
Katrin Henriksen, 192 Goose Lane. I'm the proud mom of Tobias, who spoke earlier. And I also want to speak in favor of a policy supporting the LGBTQIA community at the Tolland school system. So in our family, Toby has gone this year from entering under one name and is now going by Tobias. So the transition process in school is very recent for us. And I found in speaking to Toby's teachers, they were all supportive. I mean, it's a small sample of the staff, all supportive, but various degrees of confusion about how to properly and supportively deal with a student who's undergoing this experience. So I think a policy that would help educate the staff and also making use of the expertise of the students who are in this position, I think that would be really helpful. Just to the staff, where the ones I met were all well-meaning, but not all clear on how to proceed. And then I also want to just echo what the kids have been saying about not feeling safe, because I see that in my son, that I feel his horizons are restricted in the school because he just doesn't feel safe in the broader community. So the tendency is to stay with those other kids who are safe, so that does restrict the opportunities just for participating in the broader experience. Just these little nasty calls as you're walking down the hall or in the parking lot, or there's got to be some way to address that so these kids can fully participate in that experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Chris and Liz.
Hi, my name is Christopher Jimenez. And my pronouns are he, him, and I live at 68 Anthony Road. I'm here to show support for an inclusive LGBTQ plus policy. My husband and I, when we were choosing towns to live in, we chose this town because of the school systems that we had for our son Carter. In recognition of International Women's Day, I want to recognize Marsha P. Johnson. She is a trans woman of color that started the modern day queer rights movement. Too often in this nation, in school board meetings just like this, we see the demonization and the attacks of queer kids, especially trans children in our schools. We as a town must not only make sure that we protect trans children, but we are actively making sure that we enact policies to protect them, to make sure they are loved, they are seen, and they are heard, regardless of whatever the child is facing. They must be protected and loved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is, my pronouns are he, him, and I live at. I'm here with the Mansfield Tolland chapter of PFLAG. And I'm here to provide a little perspective of what it looks like to be in these schools as a trans student. I've been out since freshman year, and it is frustrating to hear about all of these children who are younger than me and going through the same exact thing that I did, because I was 14 years old and I hated myself because everyone looked at me and they knew that I was different, and it was terrible. It was terrible. And it is not getting better. There are policies in Mansfield. I'm a senior at Smith. There are policies in Mansfield that directly at least attempt to forbid these bullying behavior, ostracization, etc. My little brother, he is 14 and he is a freshman. In his middle school, he was called slurs in the hallway because he is gay. And I just frankly cannot imagine how we cannot try it. Like, I look at him and I think, I cannot believe that you are going through the same thing that I did, because that is not fair. And I don't think that it's fair that any other students should have to go through that. Because I am 17 and I am not conventional and I'm very passionate and I do not have the power, the direct power that you all have to make these changes. And if I were sitting in any of those seats, I think it's just the ability to make that change, to prevent any other kid from going through what I did. I would do anything for it. And it is upsetting that anyone would not feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online? If not, I will move into the room. Seeing that there are no hands raised online, we'll open the floor back up. Come on.
Hello, my name is, my pronouns are he, him. I'm a senior at U.S. Smith. I'm from Ashford. And I'm here with the Mansfield Tolland chapter of PFLAG. Tolland Public Schools need to implement policy to prevent bullying of queer kids. Because why are there no consequences for students who are told to kill themselves during class? Why is no one in authority making sure that that does not happen and that kids can get away with that? Policy is crucial because I should not have to worry about my safety during the school day. I am there to learn. And knowing that authority figures within the school system will take bullying incidents seriously and actually enact consequences instead of just giving a student a talk will bring students peace of mind and make them feel as though they are wanted and not just tolerated at school. Education is a human right for everyone. Kids cannot learn where they do not feel safe. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Sarah Human, she, her, and 103 Mansfield Hollow Road. I am here with Tolland's PFLAG. I have two children, Asher, a freshman in high school, and Daniel, a senior in high school. Daniel also happens to be transgender. My family and I are here tonight to encourage the Tolland School District to become an educational leader in supporting protections for all students by adopting a policy that protects LGBTQAI+ students. Through thoughtful and intentional practices, Tolland schools can create inclusive conditions for all its students, thereby setting a tone that demonstrates your commitment to making sure every child feels safe, seen, and respected. This matters because there is abundant research about the relationship between a student's sense of safety and their ability to succeed in school. The research shows that students that are in the community are at a much higher risk for depression and suicide. School environments can either have a positive supportive impact on student success or have a detrimental impact on the student's perception of safety and their ability to learn. It is imperative that the understanding and respect for those in the community begin with the leadership of the administration and teachers who are committed to creating safe spaces free of bullying and discrimination, regardless of gender identity, expression, or sexuality. The examples set forth by teachers and leaders within the school can mean the difference between a confident, engaged learner and one who feels isolated, bullied, unseen, and depressed. We've been on this incredible journey with our son since he transitioned at the age of 7. And together as a family, we've had amazing opportunities to grow and learn from him. Because we have openly shared our experiences, we've heard from many families who've reached out to us over the years, sharing their frustrations and challenges with their school environment and trying to keep their kids safe. I'm asking you tonight to consider a policy that creates change so that all kids feel safe and protected in school.
Thank you. And still seeing no hands online.
Good evening. My name is Catherine McDonald, 47 Schnipsit Lake Road. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here as a mom of children in the public schools and as a licensed professional counselor. I just want to say there's so many brave, amazing kids here tonight, and it feels, I wanted to give you your turn first before I jumped in, but it's really intimidating to follow up your courage and bravery. I want to call upon the board to take this as an opportunity. the magnitude of this concern cannot be ignored, minimized, and this is not the time to half-heartedly pass something to pacify people. And I'm hoping as a mental health professional of over a decade, I can share some stats that will kind of speak to that. The stories that you've heard tonight are not little anecdotes, and they're representative of the broader struggles that the LGBTQIA+ community encounters. 73% of youth in the LGBTQ community experience anxiety. About 60% meet clinical depression criteria for a major depressive disorder. 45% of them have seriously considered suicide, and over 15% have recently attempted when surveyed by the Trevor Project last year. We're not talking outdated data. This is a real problem. It's a crisis, and it's obvious it's happening in our community, which is really disappointing. It's quite embarrassing to say I'm sending my kids to school where this is happening so rampantly. And just because my children aren't saying hateful things doesn't mean it needs to go on or that it's not an issue. The Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network has already done a lot of the work for you. Tony, you're being called upon tonight, and guess what? There's framework for this. Lots of this work has already been done. And I know budget's a hot topic. There are already programs in place grounded in research that will cost little to nothing to change the community and hold people accountable who are expressing hate, because I know nobody wants to claim that Tolland represents that. So I hope you're going to take this seriously and not implement a low-level policy, but really affect meaningful change to make everyone safe. Thank you.
Seeing no one online. Anyone else? Everyone's good?
For now.
Okay. Okay, at this point, I will close out the public participation and we will move on to correspondence. However, Jacob is not here for correspondence, so we can open up the points of information for board members at this time. Go ahead.
Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Tony Holt. I am the chair of the policy subcommittee. I want to start by thanking everybody, and especially you. You have so much power. Your words were absolutely moving, and I just want to thank all of you for speaking. I also want to thank Tilly and Lisa that were willing to take time out of their days Monday, sit down with me and just talk and help me learn and get better, get smarter about what's going on there and get a little bit more perspective. Dr. Willett and I have, and I know we'll have a much more in-depth conversation, but just to hit it real quick, Dr. Willett and I have a monthly strategy meeting for policy to try to figure out, what we want to look at, what kind of things we want to put on the agenda, and look at it ahead of time where we can start gathering the information, because you're absolutely right in that some things are so critical and they're so important that we do right, that we want to get the research ahead of time and get those things going. Policy has such an ability to do a couple of things. One, to step up and say that these are our priorities. This is what we believe as a district, as a town, and we're willing to step up and articulate that. But also, it creates an umbrella and provides that support structure for not only the students, but for our administration to get that knowledge and to get those tools that they need to do these things and make those changes. And again, we'll talk a bit more into it, but assuming that the board votes the way I hope they do, it is absolutely my intention to put this on an agenda. It is absolutely my intention to make sure this is right, to make sure that it's clear, and to make sure that every one of our students has a safe environment. And that's what we're here for. That's what I know we're all passionate for it, and that's what I promise you we're going to do. Thank you.
And I do think that, obviously the discussion is going to come out later, but I think a lot of the times that the students were talking, it's the staff. So students, but gotta make sure that we have our staff under there too. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I just also want to thank everyone who came out tonight and spoke, and those online and those who have emailed us. To our students, you are so brave and I'm so proud of you, and thank you for sharing with us. And to our parents, I have no words. I promise you that I definitely want all of our students to feel accepted and respected, and most of all, safe. So thank you for coming tonight.
I also wanted to say thank you to everyone and express my admiration for everyone's very, very honest words and your bravery that you showed all of us tonight. And I'm honestly just blown away by what all of you have so openly shared with us. And I agree. And it's important. And I am so honored to be part of the policy committee and will be honored to work on this. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Christina Ford has her hand up.
Thank you. A couple points. I think all of you picked the right meeting to come to and speak about what you're passionate about. I think Tony is passionate about policy and willing to take it to the committee. And I believe this whole board is willing to do that. So I'm in support of, doing it right. Like one of the last speakers had said, I researched a couple policies that other school districts have and, whether or not they have teeth and how they protect all students. And I think there's work to be done. So thank you. For the kids that spoke that aren't from Tolland, I think that you speak for those that do live in Tolland that are fearful to speak. So thank you for that. And then in regards to some email correspondence from Ms. Murray, I did ask board leadership to put staffing specifically for the middle school on the agenda. So hopefully we'll be seeing that. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Dina?
Hi, and I'm going to apologize in advance if there's screaming children or dogs. I just like to reiterate what several of my peers have said tonight. And I would say that everyone who spoke, parent, students, neighboring townsfolk that spoke tonight regarding what they're passionate about. And I think passion around safety in schools is paramount. Our students should feel safe in all capacities. And so I definitely applaud your bravery, and I applaud you all for educating us and sharing your experiences. We can only improve with continuing our education as well. But I myself, I'm also on the policy committee, so I do look forward to engaging this conversation in a thorough, in-depth conversation. There should be no school, no student, no staff member, no parent that shouldn't feel safe within our walls of our educational system, let alone within Tolland as a community. And for even our youngest ones, I believe it was Finley, you're impressive and beyond your years. I do look forward to hearing from more of you. I did read every single email, and I am listening to you. I'm hearing you. I will do my best to continue to advocate for all students of Tolland Public School System and all Tolland communities. So continue to write in, continue to call in, to continue to be involved in the meetings. Just as you're passionate about this, I look forward to seeing more of you in other facets of the school system and your own development. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dina.
Yeah,
no, go. Go right ahead.
Thank you all, first of all, especially you. We was just at a house recently. I'm a bit emotional, and it's funny because I feel selfish to be doing that. I feel like a lot of concerns that are brought up on one night out of 365 days. A lot of times they are forgotten, whether it's about one community or the other. And I feel like this is the night that everybody in this room can acknowledge that should last for the next X amount of years, infinite. It should not settle on mediocrity. And to hear the kids' parents, grateful for you all as well. You all have been, I live at my parents at home. Beckett knows very well. You can learn a lot through this process. And the kids who spoke tonight, the students who spoke tonight, I'll say, you're the reason I'm crying. You all really came in and spoke how you truly felt. And God, I hope this does not fall on deaf ears. And again, thank you to those who spoke over the Zoom. All I can say is thank you. Sorry.
No, it's a very emotional topic, so it's, it's understandable. So once again, I will reiterate.
Can I throw some?
Oh, go ahead, go throw it in.
You want to reiterate what it's?
No, I'm not gonna reiterate, go ahead.
I want to just thank you and say that the love and compassion that you showed, was remarkable, that you can stand up and, express your frustrations through this powerful love and compassion you have. And it does sometimes take a spark to light a fire. So you've been working, I know, to light those fires, to bring light into place, to help people recognize, that you tell your stories and help people understand better. And it's such a powerful message that you've sent tonight, and I'm so thankful that you came to do. I will tell you that I'm committed in every way to helping. And my cell phone is out there and other things that I don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm hoping that we can do many things. Mansfield Leo Smith, I know you had this awesome play. And I had the great fortune to see that. I thought that was, and there were 3 vignettes, and I think I caught the last one. I missed the first 2, unfortunately, so you have to tell me about it. I saw the very end of it, and it's disappointing. I missed the after 2, but I did get to see the 3rd, and I thank you for coming to support your peers here at Tolland. So thank you so much for what you've done. And we'll be addressing it a little later in the agenda tonight, okay? But thank you.
Well, I reiterate now. But we will be addressing this a little bit later in the agenda. I do, like I said, the experiences to speak to it does show bravery. So I can't thank you guys enough for speaking out. I do think it is important for our board to consider everything. So I do think, especially sharing experiences of being a student, it's a very cool thing. So thank you all. With that said, we will go to our student representatives.
Okay, not to change the subject, but to start, last Wednesday, we had the deck estates, which for Tolland we did, as usual, fantastic. I just wanted to commemorate some of the winners from the competition. Garrett Bunks in automotives got 1st place. Samuel Nussbaum in business finance got 1st place. Julia Bollier and Amelia Lichen in financial services got 1st place. Josh Reed and Sulan Zhang in hospitality and services team got 1st place. Antonio Rose and entrepreneurship got 2nd place. Sophia Cunningham in hotel and lodging got 2nd place. Patrick Kofula and personal financial literacy got 2nd place. Jackie Sterling and Jude Breakin in marketing management team got 3rd place. Leah Walsh in quick serve restaurant management got 3rd place. Nate Boulis and Chase Sapiri in sports and entertainment got 3rd place. Samir Kashal in automotive services got 4th. Hannah Simpson got 4th in retail merchandising. Myself and Juliet Carey got 4th in travel and tourism. And Jace Miller got 5th in business services marketing. And Alyssa Bogus got 5th in hotel and lodge management. So just give her a little fantastic job on the representatives.
All right, very quickly switching back to the topic at hand. Great job, everyone. That was really great. The only reason I'm not bursting into tears right now is that I'm the vice president of the Tolland High School GSA.
And at a lot of our meetings, when we talk about stuff like this, I hear it over and over. This isn't a new problem. And the tears can go away, but the pain does not. So just keep that in mind. And just, you know, if this doesn't get passed, your next student's correspondence will be very passive aggressive. In happier news, our winter pack rally happened recently. The freshmen came away with a win in every single category, which was awesome. The part that was the best, though, it will be commemorated in my mind forever. The freshmen won against the seniors in tug of war. Thank you, freshmen.
I think it was yesterday the unified game was? Yes. There was a unified basketball game. It was home, I think, and we had some photography, and I think there was a crowd. It was fantastic. At the Winter Pep Rally, there was also a unified basketball game that was really good. We got a lot of support for the team and a more awareness, and I was very happy about that.
Super impressive. Mary Poppins is coming up. Set your calendars for March 16th and 17th, or 17th and 18th. 17th and 18th. Thank you. There will be on Friday a night show, and then on Saturday a matinee and a night show. So if you want to bring your baby or your very old grandparents, you can go to the matinee. It's going to be really fun. We have amazing equipment, one of our most expensive projects yet, and I'm very excited. So everyone should go.
Me too. I'm also very excited. I will be attending. I went to last year's. It was fantastic. We had announcements at the end of the day to talk about the dodgeball. I know last year it didn't happen, but they're trying to happen again. You need to create teams of 7, and I think they had an after-school meeting about it. So they're trying to get enough teams to create a dodgeball tournament, which should be exciting if it happens.
And finally, my darling Juliet Carey and the rest of the sophomore class officers are proposing a lock-in for fall of next year. A Google form was sent around asking about what snacks or activities or movies we'd like to watch. So I'm pretty sure that will be happening next year in fall, and I'm very excited for it. It sounds like a lot of fun, and it's under great management too. So sophomore class officer representation, and that's it. I forgot you didn't have another part, but I'll be staying because I like to loiter. Mira has a lot of work she has to do, math homework. Smarty right here.
Thank you, everyone.
She'll be leaving, but if you have any questions, you can direct them towards me.
Thank you, ladies, very much. You did forget to mention SATs, March 22nd.
SATs are March 22nd. Prepare for them. Do well or don't. Have fun, everyone.
Perfect. Any questions? Online, any questions? Thank you very much for your thorough report.
Welcome.
Okay, let's jump into the monthly financials.
Okay, well, we had a lot of minutes. This will take a second to scroll. Apologies in advance.
There were 3 sets.
Then I don't have music I can play while I do that.
Well, typically you hum a song.
Yeah, you don't want that. I have no talent whatsoever.
Oh, here, there you go.
There we go.
Scroll up. There you go.
Okay, and most importantly, really this, because I'll babble
Yeah.
about the other stuff. So those of you at home should be able to kind of load that up a little bit. Okay, here we go. Apologies. So just, I'm gonna do the typical highlights for this aspect of the budget. You know, you've heard this 100 times before that, you know, we do have the monthly budget reports in the first meeting of the month. I'll go over the codes, and just let you know, we did get the excess cost payment in the first one, and we get those in February and May. So you'll notice that our balance did come out of that negative position because of that. Again, we are, still, in the state of a budget freeze because we want to make sure that we maintain a positive budget position as we get into the end of the year. The salaries, code 110, are currently under budget. That's typical for where we are, and we do still have some hiring to do. Substitute Code 120 is available balance of 114. This line is down by 36,000 from last month. The overtime code 130 expenses are currently under by 93, but of course, we do have a number of months. And as we head into the end here with the winter and coming into the work that has to be typically done in the spring to get everything prepped, that tends to go down. Stipends are currently under by 71. The pay to play funds are always in a state of being collected, really. So that can always be the same report of them not being fully collected, because we're not really fully collected on pay to play funds until we get to the end of the year. Health insurance, severance, employee benefits, 190, 200, 210, collectively 11,000 down. Anticipated administrator and TEA severance pay were encumbered, so that's going to be affecting that line. Newly hired employees and retired employees, FICA, Med, Social Security, code 220. This usually will impact the budget as we go on. People leave and have more retirements. It's currently under 62 through February, but we think that'll balance out by the end. Retirement, course reimbursement, unemployment. You noticed how one change of course status can create kind of a $10,000 difference, and that can come on pretty quick. So code 240, 250, and 260 are under, but not all course reimbursements have been filed, and unemployment claims haven't been incurred and such. So the available balance is about 27 under, but 22 was paid out in the month of February for course reimbursements alone. So that's an example of how that can fluctuate. Benefits consultants and workers' comp balances at 270 and 310, currently under by 7,050, was encumbered during the month of November. On the benefit consulting line, we also paid in January 2023 our portion of what's called the OPEB, and so that is going down and will continue to. Professional education services 320, it's over by 88. It's an increase of 31 from last month. The special education needs are impacting that line, and that does happen. So generally, you'll see that get affecting all these areas where we've been a little under. You'll see how these other areas being over kind of balance them out. Legal, audit, and tax service 340, 350 are collectively under by about 7,000. The change to that line was due to the announcement of a budget freeze. So administrators, department heads, staff encumbered some of the upcoming expenses prior to the freeze. So you saw that kind of get impact the budget when that occurred. Repair, maintenance, custodial, cleaning, equipment, technical, 420, 430 will continue to be spent as the year progresses. Currently, we're under by 80, down by 75,000 from last month. Maintenance, custodial expenses are cyclical, as you know, they just keep happening. So, we still have a number of months before the end, and the budget freeze will probably slow that down a bit, but there's still things that will have to happen. Transportation code 510, over budget by 169,000. Change of 180,000 in this account was due to closing some POs and payment of this SEECG, which is basically excess cost. So that's why you saw that stabilize, but it's still over. Bus routes can continue to be adjusted, and to that end, I just added another bus, 2 buses basically for 178 a day, and another one looks like it's coming for 364 a day for things that just happened in the last 2 weeks. So that's how that can really fluctuate a lot. We expect that to be something we're going to have to keep monitoring this year. Special education tuition 560, it's over by 391. It's a decrease of 567 from last month. And again, that was what we call SEECG, is excess cost to most people, and that helped balance that out a bit. But as you can tell, it's not fully going to be able to do that. Energy 620 expenses were transferred to the town, as is what we've talked about every month, the UIS fund. And textbooks 640 under by 33. At this point, unless there's some emergency situation because of the freeze, we shouldn't really see that move too much. Unless something got in prior to the freeze, sometimes that can happen if an order was pending and something held it up. But that shouldn't see a lot of movement at this point. Instructional supplies, equipment, miscellaneous, general, code 600, 610, 690, 730, collectively over by about 25, down by 150,000. 150,000 from last month. The main change in the account lines is the freeze and them, encumbering things so they could make it through the rest of the year. So that's it in a nutshell. The excess cost payment or SECG payment did help put us back into balance. We're going to be watching all of those lines very carefully as we get to the end of the year to make sure we end in a responsible cash positive position. Thank you. That was I wanted music before.
Okay, perfect. Do any board members have any questions about the monthly financials? Anyone raising hand online? Okay, seeing none, we will continue on.
All right. Next item for tonight is the Clean Peak No Cost Battery Storage Program. Basically, to try to truncate everything that I have here into some short statement, it is a very large battery that can and is placed outside the school. This battery is a high-tech battery that can power a school for 3 to 5 days. So what happens is these companies will come in and place these big batteries. And there's a grant for the purpose that Megan Massa has reached out about, and looks like a reasonable one to look into. And this company, we have to apply to this company and reach out to this company to see if they're willing to accept us. So part of what I wanted to do tonight is put this in front of you so that you're aware that I am providing the bills and information to see if they would even consider us as a site. There's nothing binding about this, and we're not going to be locked into anything, but it makes sense to try to see if we could even qualify, because the benefit to our system could be very big as these units, the company makes money when there's peak power surges. That company can supply energy back to the grid. But what we get from it is that if we ever lose power, instead of using generators that put diesel and things into the air and all that, these units are the highest tech, and they can actually power the entire building and its HVAC systems for a couple of days. So we're in the process of asking all the serious, questions you'd want to ask about that. Do these batteries ever leak? Is there any issues with them? If they caught fire, how do you put them out? Apparently, the batteries can be put out with water. I know we've heard the Tesla stories, not to knock Tesla. I'm not making a comment here about Tesla in case there's any water Tesla here. But the reality is, we hear these stories about the batteries that can't be put out by water and those kinds of concerns. These batteries apparently are able to be put out by water. They're lithium phosphate, and they don't give off a vapor, I guess. So univentilators, if there was a problem, they wouldn't suck any of that stuff in. So they look like they have a good safety record. There's federal and state incentives for the program, and us applying to it means that we would actually have opportunity to have, emergency power. And our relationship with them would be about 10 years. They would pay for almost all of the fees, if not all of them, for the deployment, construction, and placement. So I wanted to make sure the board was aware that, I am engaging with this company, with the town, to see if they would even accept us as a potential site. And if it does go to that point, I would be coming back to the board to make sure you're informed along the way, and we're able to be a part of that process.
I have a couple questions. The pictures did show it's a very large battery. They're not like compact. It's think of it like a storage unit that are plopped on the property. Now, I know that the safety says that you can use water and you're talking about vapors, but I do have what is the real safety factor of being on the school property near the schools? How can it impact our students if something goes wrong? Is the Board of Ed going to be on the hook if we have to pay for, fixing anything? We just always end up being the default. Oh, no, now it's on Board of Ed property. Now it's your bill. And so I just, I want to make sure that we're conscious that it is not going to be another fee that is somehow going to be tacked on to us some way, somehow, if there's cleanup factors, if something happens. I mean, we are with school children, that this is.
Yeah, and those were my concerns too, frankly. That's why I even went to the vapor question, because I was very interested in that. The water question, very interested to make sure these could be safely managed if there was a problem. And so what we're doing is the next step, if we were accepted, would be to have all of our public safety people and everybody involved to make sure that was fully vetted. And if at any point along the way, public safety or others don't feel like this is actually viable for us, then we would not go any further. But this step is just seeing if we could even be considered. Because if we can be considered, then the company will engage with us with even more, they'll answer more of our questions and do more with us if we're even one of the districts that could potentially get it. Windsor has it right now. I'm reaching out to that superintendent, ask them, but apparently they've had a good experience with that, to my understanding. I'll get more information. But the safety pieces would all have to be worked out. So this stage would just be making us a candidate. And then we would have a series of meetings to make sure that no T was uncrossed or no I was not dotted about the safety piece. I wouldn't want these on our campuses if there was a safety issue. The other question I had was, who removes?
That was gonna be my next.
So after
question. So you
10
said
years, or if there's a problem, how do you get a battery that size?
And what do you, and how do
And where do you
take it
dispose
free?
it? Like dropping it into like Arizona where a nuclear, where are you putting these things when it's all over? Because it's lithium. So I had those exact same questions.
On the list that goes to the town.
Yeah. And I think I probably put it on the. Yeah, so I've been a nudge about this too, because I was asking all those same questions, I think to the point where it probably annoyed people, but the reality is, we have to know those things, so at this point, I think that, if we are one of the districts considered for it, then that would be where we could bang out all of that, and who would be responsible for removal charges, and, what if the company went out of business, then what? All of those things would be part of that conversation, but we can't really even get to that point unless we apply to be considered. So this is just, saying, I'm planning on doing that unless you all come out tonight and say, absolutely not, do not do this, we do not want to be a part of this, then, I'm gonna have us engaged to try to see if we can.
Yeah, Dr. Wilt, one of the things, and I recognize that may be a question as you go into more of the weeds in this, but we've had a couple of conversations over the past couple of months of different ideas, different ways that we can position ourselves better from an energy perspective, than the solar, this and a couple of other things. I'm curious about the interactions between them. Once you start plugging different things into the network, you change the network. It's now.
Yeah.
How are they gonna fight each other? They're gonna induce inductive loads that we're not prepared for. There's a whole bunch of what happens when they start playing together, issues that we'd absolutely have to take a look at before we come out.
Right, and so those questions were asked to, at least in the first round, and the solar panels would feed the batteries. And then the batteries would offset the energy. Yeah, so it's all, these things would,
The front load.
they would work together,
Goes.
and so then you would have an even greater opportunity to offset your load, especially at peak times. So it also might end the Chris Cap peak thing where people don't understand why once a year or twice a year, teachers and staff run around frantically turning off every electronic device and all the lights and everything else. And that's because we get billed on certain windows of peak, peak snapshots.
I've been in them.
Right, so if we get told that a snapshot is about to be taken, we run around turning everything off. And,
Unplug computers.
no one understands what we're doing and shutting everything down. This might actually help offset some of the need.
It was
to
a
do
very hot day, Walt.
Yeah.
Very, very hot. So just let you know.
But that's all, those things would work together. The solar panels would work together. As an update on that, we're almost to the point of being able to tie up that to be considered as well. So these two things would be working in conjunction if we're accepted for them.
Okay, Dana has her hand up. Let's go to Dana.
So Tony actually stole my question, so thank you, Tony. I just wanted to know how it would work, because again, I'm all for us being more energy efficient and, aware of our planet and our carbon footprint and all of that, and do what we can to be right by the planet, as well as, saving our town and school system some money. Again, my big concern would be, where some of the different questions that Ashley had said, like maintenance down the road, who foots the bill for different aspects of it. I think there's some other questions that we still need to talk about. And then is this the only program or energy group that we can qualify for, with partner with, or get information from, bidding from? There are others out there that we can entertain?
Well, this is the one offering the possible deal, and that's there. And so part of the grant, working with Ms. Massa over in the town, these are the ones who would be able to do the work for us. So, yeah. And again, it is, this is sort of, at least for our area, cutting edge in that, the years ago, most of us can remember this, batteries would have had no capability to do this. This is a fairly new development, that the technology has advanced to the point that you can run a building as big as our buildings for 3 days, to 5 days on a battery versus a generator. So this is all cutting edge and new stuff that if we're getting in on it, we could actually benefit from an energy and cost perspective. And that might be very important for the district as we head into the next few years and decade, where our energy and energy costs are a concern for everyone. So it would be a way of taking the edge off when things are getting hot, metaphorically. And
But speaking of technology though, like,
with this, I'm sorry.
hold on, Vanna, you're saying that this is like the cutting edge, this is like so great, but you'd sign up for 10 years, but within 10 years, I mean, technology advances significantly. So how do we know that in like 5 years, these things could be, I don't know, half the size, and you have more power or something? I mean, that's all something to consider too.
Well, they probably would, and that's the thing, is that, you have to, people engaging in this start somewhere. The first people who bought the Teslas, the first people who did these are the kind of things that there will be early adopters, or quasi early adopters. And if we were involved with this for our area, we would be an early adopter. And the company wants to make money. So the company wants to have those batteries be as efficient as possible. But the point you bring up is a good one, because, we may not have the smallest ones 7 years, 8 years from now, because somebody near us might have gotten the highest tech ones that are the size of a closet. We still have the ones the size of a trailer, but eventually those would have to be taken out and replaced, So that's really what the next stage is all about. And that's been one of my biggest questions yet, is how do these get taken out? Whenever the new ones are coming in, who's responsible for paying for these being taken out? And where does the lithium go? And, that type of thing. So again, those things are worked out at the next stage. I think many people feel very confident about Clean Peak, that they will have good answers to those questions. But we won't know that unless we're accepted. And so this would just be, again, putting our hat in, or seeing if we would be one of the districts that could even be considered for such a.
Sorry, Dana, I know you probably had another question. I just wanted to jump in with the size.
Sorry, the conversation evolved, and all my questions were answered, so thank you.
No commitment.
Yeah. We would not, no, there's no commitment to us, and
We were
would
just discussing.
taking commitment for that.
Right, just want to be clear.
Yeah,
No.
go ahead.
Just a quick question. You might have mentioned this, Dr. But what's the timeline on something like this? When does all of this sort of start to come to fruition? When, if this is step one, when does step 2 take place?
So right now, we won't have the best handle on all the steps unless we're accepted, because the company has a lot of suitors, so to speak. And so depending on, they'll spend more time with the group that they want to bring in, and then we would know better. But, we're looking at it, I would say somewhere in a 1 to 2 year span of, once it's committed, these things would start to, 1 to 3 years, probably be here. It's a 10-year commitment. So I would think it would happen in relatively quick.
So 10-year commitment, does that mean they have a 10-year lifespan as well? Is that sort of?
Well, that's the thought, is that they would be responsible for all of the upkeep and replacement of these things for 10 years, you know. Now, the only question there is, will they be around for 10 years?
Right.
Because a 10-year relationship is only good if the other person in the relationship actually plans on hanging around for 10 years. So, you know, this piece of it, I don't know. But it seems like it's a profitable thing. That's why I put how they make their money up there. Because the plan for them making money seems sound. And, you know, if that makes sense, then they would be around to, you know, for us to get our benefit out. So that's kind of the way this would pan out, but I don't know until they, you know, they decide we're a suitable partner for them.
Anything else? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I definitely think it's worth exploring. It's interesting. Well, I'm interested to hear about it after, you know, if we're eligible or they consider us.
Yeah, I hope they do, you know.
But it's just a question for you, Madam Chair. What are we looking for out of this discussion? Do we need to vote to say we approve, or is no answer
I
a
think,
yes, go ahead?
I think no answer, because it's not like we really necessarily need board action, because we don't even necessarily know if we are a suitor. So I think until we are a suitor in this situation.
Yeah, and I'm probably messing up the suitor's the one who wants. You're right.
I don't know, but you said it now.
Anyway. Anyway, we want to see if they like to partner with us. If we are a suitable partner for their business plan.
So I think for right now, you're just coming to the board for information, and there's really nothing that we're gonna do until they make their choice as to, you know, I mean, that this may be the only discussion that we have. So once it takes that next step, then we have more in-depth conversation, and I would think that we'd get a little bit more information.
Definitely will, yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about, oh, yes, the Board of Ed meeting on the April 12th. It is April vacation. I will not be here, as will many of you. So, the question then becomes, do you guys, would you like to reschedule? Do you want to cancel? That is the conversation to be had.
My April break is the week after. But I'm good with whatever. To be clear, to be very clear.
I mean, I would think cancel, and if needed, we could always add a special meeting.
We could always add a special.
I think so too.
I guess I was on the other side of reschedule. Without really knowing what we've got coming up, I hesitate to remove meetings. Especially if we can cancel if nothing's there, but I would at least put something on my calendar.
Yeah, because we still have a meeting. It's just a matter of that one where I'm like, we were talking about the board meetings, and I said, well, isn't that something? So I will not be here for that. Dana.
Yes, I too will be out of town. I definitely think that adding a special meeting if necessary would be probably be in our best interest. I'm looking at the calendar, and I think the 19th is FFC, the 26th is policy. I don't know, those are just the committees that I happen to be on that I know the dates. So I know that we do have a full calendar. But I would be for canceling the meeting and adding a special meeting if needed.
Okay, well, this is what I will say, is that, along with Tony, we don't necessarily know what is happening, so I'm okay with canceling that meeting for the 12th regardless, because I just think that obviously no one's going to be here. We do have a 26th, so if we have two, it would either be the 5th or the 19th. And this is something that we can reschedule. I mean, this is if we're doing Wednesday. I just so happen to pick Wednesday because our meetings are Wednesday. You know what I mean? Like everybody's used to a Wednesday. So why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and we can move this to board action and cancel at least that. And then let's see where we are on the 22nd meeting of March. with our agenda and seeing what's happening. And then next meeting, if we feel as though, because we don't have another one, that is a long time to go without one. So let's touch base on the 22nd and just see where we are with the agenda and then come up with, we think it's necessary to have the 5th or the 19th.
You do
Does that
see,
seem fair?
yeah, the town budget process kicks up too. So you may be, you know, you may desire to attend some of those. One of the board's budget is being considered in the public meeting on March 20th. And you'll have your next meeting on the 22nd and so on. And there are other meetings along the way. So you know, it may be that you're opening up a little time for yourselves to be able to participate in more of those as well.
I'm very, I definitely have.
I love meetings. Suppers. Is that equal?
Oh, no, we have. Yeah. So let's go ahead and let's do this. So I will entertain a motion to move I3 under L1 for board action. We can do that, and then under board action, we can cancel that April.
Tony Holt, so moved.
Steve Beresford, I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion before we move it to board action? No hands raised. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote, so.
Aye.
Aye. So Jaden, Jen. Sophia.
Hi.
Tony.
Aye.
And then, Lord
Aye.
and Dana.
Aye.
Okay, so we will move this to board action L1 to cancel the April 12th meeting. Okay, thank you, everyone. And like I said, please keep that in your mind. So don't go crazy scheduling your Wednesdays in April because we may just very well take one. You are on notice. Okay, let's go to I4.
Okay, so, you know, thank you. We put this agenda item in, or one of the agenda item in, so we could, so I can review with you that I'm in the process of working right now, and have been actually, for a period of months on documents. And so the Board of Ed tonight, what I've done is I provided some documentation for you for your consideration. And as I work on what I'm calling superintendent's, you know, it's guidelines and practices, LGBTQ A+ guidelines and practices for the district. I wanted to provide information to you to help you understand and wrap your heads around, you know, all of the various aspects of how we would be doing this to support students in the best way possible. And so to that end, you'll notice that I've put out there and posted a number in a series of documents for you to look at and start to really chew on and think about. I want you to have the opportunity to be reviewing those as I'm working, because I do intend on putting guidelines and practices into place. I think the staff need them, and most importantly, I think the students need them, the community and the families. So that is what I intend to do, and I want you to know what I'm basing my thoughts on as I move forward. So these resources are available for you to review, and I thank you for taking the time in advance, because I know there's a lot there. But being able to look at it, review it, and read everything will help you really, my opinion, it will help you understand, you know, the whys about how things are coming together for that. I would like to make sure I put these guidelines in place by the end of the year so that we can begin next year with them and we can plan professional development around that. We do our retreat and our planning in the summer for, you know, we are able to get an idea of what our resources are, and we're able to look at the calendar and put, you know, the dates and the times and schedule the people, usually in the summer for the upcoming year's PD. So I'd like the guidelines and practices in place so that we, you know, have, you know, expectations, staff know how, you know, how to best support kids, and everyone is on the same page going into the summer so that we can then plan, reach out to resources, work with groups like PFLAG and others, and listen and others to make sure that our PD is, you know, comprehensive, effective, and is laid out ahead of time so everybody knows that it's coming and when it will be there. So that's to me, it's important for the timeline. So I just wanted to give you an idea of how that was going, and you know, so you can understand why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it and how I'm progressing with it. And so I, be meeting with different faculty groups over the next few weeks, talking about this and putting these in front of them and getting their feedback and then ultimately releasing them. And in conjunction with that, I know that just talking about it tonight, as you've heard, a number of people expressed with a lot of love and compassion and courage experiences they've had. And, to me, that just, it strikes at all of our hearts, knowing that, that they had the courage to come and share, that these experiences are happening, So the importance of this, there's really nothing more important. And so, as I'm working through that to make sure we have practices that, are equitable and supportive, that, that the board may want to consider what it wants to do next. And I'm hearing from Mr. Holt, and I know Mr. Holt has been supportive of that, getting into policy and having the conversations in policy, which I think is, makes a lot of sense as we're moving forward with it, so that we have, the on the ground practices and guidelines, and then the policy is always the overreaching thing that helps show the district's commitment from a legal and policy perspective of support. So there's always regulation and practices on the ground and the policies that help show the umbrella of support. So that's basically, why it's on there for tonight. I also wanted to give you an idea of the draft TPS practices to support, LGBTQA+ and transgender students. That document is a draft right now, but please note that as you go through it, there are annotations. So when there's a statement there, there's nothing in that document that is just because hey, it's just what I thought. I want you to know that as you see these annotations, look at the bottom of it, and there's the backup for it and the foundation for it. So it's full of annotations. Many are references to the Connecticut State Department of Education guidance on civil rights protections for transgender students. There's a frequently asked questions doc. There's an NBSA doc for National Boards of School Board Association. There's a lot of backup for everything that's in there. So I encourage you to really kind of go through it and look at the footnotes and references, because it's grounded in all of the things that I think are important and that are documented to be important for supporting our youth in our community. So
Question on the annotations. Did Shipman and Goodwin, did they provide?
this has been vetted by Shipman and Goodwin and is supported by Shipman and Goodwin. So not only is it's well grounded in the literature, it has all the references, it is legally supported. The CSD is putting out new guidelines, and I haven't seen them yet. As soon as those are out, I would also incorporate them. But that's why I wanted to highlight that this document is grounded. So I know some people, there's the internet can be a wonderful thing, but it can be a terrible thing. And so people doing, research, just make sure that you're, listen, people, we're going to resources that we know have some, so are able to really help us with that. And, Shipman and Goodwin will also be a resource for us. This is vetted by them, reviewed it, supported 100%. And I can also provide other information. So please just, take a look at that and recognize that these are all grounded in legal matters, the best practices, all of that. So that's why it is the way it is, what I would be using to move forward. And so I'll be meeting with various groups starting next week on that, making sure we get everybody aware of it, get the feedback, do the rounds with stakeholders, and then get it in place for the end of this year, so we can work on the PD over the summer and roll into next year with PD in place and all of these things in place. So that's the purpose, is just making sure you are aware of what I am doing, and why and how it's grounded in the best and most supportive practices for kids, as well as what's legally important from a civil rights perspective.
Thank you. I do know that tonight was supposed to be for the board to discuss whether we go forward and put it into the policy, and they can do a little bit more work on that to get the framework situated and actually create said policy. I know just through people's comments that that's where they would like to go with this, and that's not necessarily. Go ahead.
Well, and I didn't want to interrupt you. I just want to tag on to what you're saying. if you recall, within our structure, we have the policy and we have the regulations. And the policy sets that tone and it says what we believe, what we want to happen, that overall spirit. And then the regulations go in and they describe how they're actually gonna happen. Dr. Willett and his team do that. I think what happens here, and where Dr. Willett and I have been looking at it from a strategy perspective, is both. Obviously the policy committee takes it on as far as developing and, really creating that policy, that overall arching structure, while Dr. Willett does what he was just talking about there. I have spent the past probably month reading various laws and guidances and draft policies to try to figure out what we all bring into the committee. Because I don't see this being a one meeting conversation. We try to, in our policy committees, have a couple of those easy policies that we could change and fix that are normally the state changed a number on the guidance, so we have to change our policy. We then also have those bigger ones where we really sit and talk about it, try to figure out what we think, what we feel, where we want the district to be 5 years, 10 years. How do we create that environment where Dr. Willett and his staff can work and magic what they do? And this is absolutely one of those. So I think I'm in line with where you were going there, Chairman Lundgren, is that both things have to happen. Both things are a priority, and both things are an absolute honor to work on. So, I also want to reach out to the rest of the boards. Policy is fun. Absolutely welcome as this goes on to be a part of the committee and help.
Dina has her hand up and then Dina.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So this document that you provided us, Dr. Willett, on the dashboard, or multiple documents, I should say, on the dashboard, there's the draft of the practices to support transgender students, and then there's guidance, FAQs, students in schools, students and parents' rights. As we're working through this, is this something that can be available to the public? So for potential feedback, potential assistance with this, is this, since we are discussing it in a public meeting, can this document or this working document be made public and shareable? First and foremost, and I also think it's paramount that we get it on policy ASAP, simply because we've had people talk about safety, and safety is number one.
So yes, I mean, a lot of the documents that I provided you are documents that are available on it. It's just the documents I provided you have been vetted as good resources for understanding. And so that's a lot of these documents you have are documents that are already out there, but certainly I can collect and then kind of post that. And certainly the practices itself, definitely. I just want to make sure that I run through other groups to get it to the best possible place it could be, and then publish it. But I have every intention on doing that, because when I do this, I will also be sending out notification that I have, I through and working with the stakeholders and staff have put it in place as our guidance and practices. So this is definitely going to be, put out there for people to see.
Okay. Yeah, I look forward to a thorough conversation. I mean, you gave a lot of great literature and guidance on this, so thank you.
Dana stole one of my questions. And then Tony, if you at some point want to work with communication, once we get a policy in place or whatnot, something maybe that should go out to the community or students, I'd be thrilled to do that.
Great.
And then the other question I was going to ask was, do we want to revisit or talk about our bullying policies or our non-discrimination policies or the student handbooks, safe climate plan, or just talk about, how these things are being enforced or how they're being enforced? Because I think one of the most concerning things tonight was so many people, students and parents, talking about not feeling safe. So I would just want to do everything we can to make sure that we're enforcing the policies we already have in place and this policy, and they work together so that our students can start feeling safer.
To tag, absolutely, Jen. In fact, one of the things that struck me when I really started digging into not just the data, but the stories of the people I'm talking to is, regardless of why some of these are happening, the fact that kids aren't feeling safe, the fact that they're not feeling listened to. We've already got policies in place that were supposed to catch that. So while this is absolutely a policy that we need to develop, we need to replace, Dr. Woodland and I have been looking at the rest of the list going, okay, we've got, like you mentioned, a discrimination, we've got a bullying policy, we've got communication policies, we've got notification to parents at home policies, all of these other ones that may have missed something. So that those go on the list as well, as far as what we need to review and, how we look at them.
We have offenses and consequences that are part of the student handbook as well.
Okay, and
Question, how often does the handbook get revised?
well, those student handbooks get revised quite often. I think, policy is a good place to talk about a lot of the pieces of this that you want to look at carefully and update. It'll be a good conversation to have because, reflecting and reviewing our practices is always a healthy thing to do. And I think that, obviously hearing people's stories and experiences is crucial. We need to hear them, And I think it's easy for people to be defensive. I think we really need to hear them and consider every way and every, aspect of their experience and really look deeply at that. I will say that discipline, is a complicated thing. So for instance, giving someone a suspension is sometimes a reward. If there isn't the right supports, because if someone acts in a certain way and gets suspended and goes home and plays Xbox all day and, doesn't have any other sort of reflection, then that doesn't reinforce the behavior, it doesn't do anything to ameliorate the problem. And so part of it is, when things happen, I think we need to address it through a series of really two things. One, it has to be something that inconveniences the person who did it at the very least. And then it has to be something that educates and looks to bring an individual to a better understanding. And at the very end of the day, you cannot always force people to have a better understanding, but you can at least make it so that they don't want to experience the inconvenience again. And a suspension is not necessarily an inconvenience, and I'm not saying let's just make it inconvenient. I'm saying, it needs to be something that people want to avoid. They want to avoid it because they want to become better people and understand things better and be, more loving and understanding, compassionate. But at the very least, we want to make sure it's not easy to do. But that means having really good conversations about, well, I want them suspended. Well, that may not actually get to the end we're looking for. What do we do when we have an opportunity to educate? That also means that, the district may need to look at this in a way that it hasn't before, such as, that requires resources. You have to, if you're going to actually do something restorative, you're going to do something that brings people to a better understanding. The easy thing to do is slap an office detention on it and say, we did our job. Or do in turn in a suspension, we did our job. We held them accountable. But did you? Because if you really didn't talk to them, if you really didn't drill down deeper into the reasoning, if you didn't actually spend time, and frankly, that's what is going to make the difference. But that also means having the programs to achieve it. And I think there's the will, but then there'll also have to be the will on the side of the elected officials, yourselves and others, to say this matters enough for us to put dollars into those programs to do things like that, right? Some of the things that we've been talking about that are disappearing are things that, where these kinds of things would be discussed. So it's on two ends. On one end, you want to have constant enriching conversations as part of the culture, which means you have to have the programs to do on the teen leadership, the skills for adolescents, that, all of that. And then on the other end, when there are transgressions, because people come from different places and, no one is ultimately who they will become. In the process of their becoming, people do need to learn, and people make certain kinds of mistakes and statements that they have the opportunity to evolve from and learn from. And that's the other, prong of it. We have to be able to do that. We have to have people to do that. We have to have that going on. So, and we can't say that we gave someone a suspension and that was it and that worked. Because in all frankness, unless somebody's coming home to someone who's going to help, and I don't mean that in a way that, it all depends on how it plays out. Not everybody's family is the same. When I grew up, there was no one at home. I didn't come home to someone who was going to hold me accountable because there wasn't anybody there. So, and that doesn't, mean that every home is like that, but we can't assume that every home is anything. We have to be, assuming that, that the part we play is a proactive one, regardless of where people come from or what they have for resources and, who's home, because there's multiple people working. We live in an economy where that's the case, and that's not going to change. There's not always someone at home, and that's not their fault. It's people just trying to put food on the table, things like that. So the programs have to evolve in a way that really encourages reflection. And those are the more complicated ones. They require more time. They require more commitment. They do require more people. They require more programs. They can be done, and people are, and that's the other piece I just want to, say. I have worked in this district since 2006. It's full of loving and compassionate people. There needs to be more direction on some things, which I think, needs to be happening so people have the best possible way to express that love and compassion. But it's full of loving and compassionate people. So, I'm really encouraged that we have this great opportunity to really harness the grace and love that we've been shown here by people sharing their stories, and move it in a direction where those loving and compassionate people can operationalize what they're hearing. So that's what I see for us in the future, but it does mean, not taking any easy way out. And, those discipline policies, I can tell you that I know from my experience that, that they do their best to try to, enforce all of that. I think that, they can't talk to anyone about a student or child that's not their own child, so people don't always know. But the reality is that if people don't feel that they're working, then that's what we have to hear, regardless of how tired people are and how much we're trying to work to make things happen. We have to hear it so that we can find the best way to help. And so I know that everyone's working on it. And I know that they are doing everything, feeling that they can. It's on us to kind of evolve it. And as elected officials, you can help it that way, making sure that we give them that support.
So yes, we are going to review some of those policies, and we'll talk about it.
And, I think we had a student talk about some possible other consequences other than suspension too. So, I hear everything you're saying, and I couldn't be more in agreement with you, and we've talked about it before. But I also feel that I'm hearing, students feeling like they're not feeling like they're being addressed, although I understand that you can't talk about something with an individual student, but then if they see that student at school the next day, having a great time, eating lunch with their friends, playing on the baseball team or the basketball team, like I recognize that frustration. So, I need to put a period on that and just say that I hope that we're looking at the big picture. I hope we're following up with the victims after they're reporting things and seeing how they feel and how they're continuously being treated, and that consequences need to elevate. I agree with them. I think that, there needs to be consequences.
And that word, consequences.
I know.
Restorative practices are really one of the most effective ways to accomplish better understandings, right? So I want to make sure that we are careful not to turn it into, to me, it's easy for me to sit back and say, absolutely, I will suspend everyone for, but the reality is that I know in 20 and 30 years of practice that suspensions and data shows they don't work. We use them in districts across the whole United States because they're easy and they make it look. I mean, there's some cases where you do that because there's a health and safety risk, and that always has to happen in that situation. But, you know, we can't pretend that the consequence of suspension is actually effective when data shows it's not. And so that's something I just want to be careful about as we walk forward, that we're thinking about how to really move forward into restorative practices and not, you know, saber rattling ideas that these other old outdated practices actually make a difference. There's a lot of data that shows that they do. And in fact, they're applied disproportionately. You know, so we just have to, you know, be careful that we do due diligence to do the right thing by everyone and make sure that we're evolving and not, you know, not just saying that we're making a difference by doing a certain thing.
But I think what she's trying to say is that, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, there needs to be like the follow-up from staff. There needs to be the follow-up, ensuring that the child feels safe. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there needs to, like, I guess follow-up is the key term that I feel has been dropped along the way. And I mean, I know that everyone's going 101 different directions. I know that there's plenty of students, but if you have a student that is consistently saying they don't feel safe, I mean, at what point do we, you know, have to make sure that, yes, are you following up on this? Can you make sure you follow up on this? Can you do it? Because that's part of the job. So I think that that's part of the bullying factor, that whether a student, that I think what she's coming across is that, you know, you have consequences, quote unquote, and however you want to turn that for the actions of a student, you know, trying to redirect them and trying to get a positive outcome. But you still have to ensure that both parties are followed up on, making sure that they both are, you know, safe, okay, you know, going redirected on that right road and not keep going down the other path.
Well, I absolutely agree. And I think the thing about it is, I would say most people in my life, because I want to be fair, okay? I want to be fair to everyone, that most people in my life that I've run into that wanted to be educators are not Shark Tank type people. You know, they're not cutting deals or looking to cut people out. They want that. No one got into the career to overlook anyone or to marginalize anyone. So some of our questions have to be, why is that happening if the people in there are committed and want to do the right thing? What are we creating that we may not even realize as obstacles for them to do these things? And I would say that that educators want that. And I think that there's a lot that do that. And I think that that is absolutely true, that there has to be follow-up and revisiting and all of that. I just don't want us to look and say there's easy answers to the failures that have occurred, and I own them, frankly. These kids are having trouble. I'm the one who's responsible for it. So it doesn't sit well with me, and I can't sleep at night knowing kids are suffering or youth are suffering. So I own it. But I also don't want to replace things or assume that, you know, the people here are good people and they're trying. And maybe there are some who are definitely need to find other to do, and believe me, I'm committed to that. But I think the failure has to do with certain things that I don't want to necessarily say. The easy thing is to say they're just not doing this or they're just not doing that. But are we creating a culture and an environment that makes that the thing to do, the path to follow? Are we allowing enough time, for them to do it? Or are they running from one case to the next, to the next, to the next, to the point that they can't, that they're having trouble following up, so they have to triage who they're following up on? These are not people that would want to put kids aside. None of them. Well, none of them. Very few in my career. So then that means that we have to go deeper than that. And that means that I may come back to the table to you and say, we need more of the things we're not getting so we can do those things.
That's the next discussion.
For PD, I'm going to throw one out there. Every Wednesday would be great. A lot of other districts have that. We don't have that. I want us to have a lot of PD, a lot of enrichment. I want to do more than telling our teachers how to stop people from bleeding to death. I want to put stuff like this in, but we don't have the time. And so when we get into conversations about this and we don't want to give the days, here it is, guys. but we don't want to do the other stuff either, you know, we don't, a certain amount we can spend, you know, the reality is there are things that we are going to need to do that connect to other things here. And it's not, the simplest thing to do is say, they just don't care enough. They just aren't following up enough. They are, you know, because what happens is these people that hear this, who are literally depressed themselves because they feel like they're failing, are now hearing that we think they're failing. So the love and compassion we have to do here really has to be broad, and we have to be careful not to draw conclusions without looking carefully at what's really going on. So there's definitely, people that need to be educated, including myself, frankly. There's no stop to how much education you can get, and no one's perfect, and I am definitely not perfect. So the education has to be a constant part of it. But we also have to provide the time, the resources, all of the things that, that when we use terminology like let's get creative, that's, to me, I have an aversion to some of that, because I feel like you've got people being massively creative, so we need to put more substance behind that and not come up with fast, easy answers to things. And so that's what I want to kind of emphasize here is that we have to listen, and then we have to really look hard, not accusing either, but look hard at, the premise. Let's start with people mean well, and not when they're being horrible and racist and bigoted and terrible. That's not what I mean. I mean, when we're looking at our counselor who is depressed and pulling, their own hair out because they're running from person to person to person to person, our first thing shouldn't be, did you do this? Did you do this? It should be, how can we best support you so that you can execute this that we know is so valuable? Not, what, you didn't do that? You didn't do, and I always do look at it and say, well, how could we have done this? I'm not picking on any council. I'm saying with any staff, you say, how could you do this the most effective way? But a lot of times they're trying to. We have to make that possible. We have to make it realistic so that we're not blaming people for doing, for not doing something that they deeply want to be doing. So, that's where the rubber hits the road on things like budget, days, PD days, time, programming, all of that stuff. When we talk about the programs that sometimes we think are superfluous, and that, all of that, these programs aren't. They can create real misery if they're not there. So it's important that we keep thinking of that as we move, through this process of making ourselves to be the best that we can possibly be.
Thank you for that, because I don't think that we were, saying that we're pushing staff saying that they're not doing anything. I don't think that's what the conversation.
Well, I wasn't suggesting you were. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We have to. I'm just saying that the people are and do want to do exactly what you're saying. So let's be. You know that yourself because you've been in the buildings.
Absolutely.
You know that. So what do we have to do to
criticism
make
of our
that?
staff in
Right.
there. Yeah, no, and I didn't want that to come across as.
Right,
that's what
not at all.
We're saying.
Well, I'm just.
We have wonderful educators, and I do think a lot of, and you have to have a heart of gold to go into being a teacher and dealing with children every day that are not your own. So, I know, Jean, you had your hand up a couple times, so I just want to make sure that you get your time.
I did, Dr. Willett, you sort of just did, yeah, I have nothing now. I think every point you just made is so fair and true. It just makes me think just naturally, and just hear me out here. What is going on in the schools right now that so many kids or so many students are bringing this to our attention? And I feel like, yes, I'm completely on board with communications, working with policy, every board member working with policy in order to pass whatever it is needed to protect these kids and their and et cetera. But in the meantime, what does that look like? Because we can't rely on a meeting X amount of days from now. And so and this is just a curiosity question. In the meantime, what's the daily routine of whether it's admin, staff, whatever it is, to address these types of things? And whether it's a specific situation or whether it's the topic as a whole? If that's too broad of a question. That's a better way, I guess, to word it. How often is this reviewed by staff? How many chances are they given to become more consistent with what Tolland Public School expects from them? Does that make sense, I guess?
Yeah, it does. And it's a great question. I'm just trying to think of how to give the due diligence to an answer that makes sense, to give you the best answer. So policy is set by a board, and then implementation of policy happens from the staff, the people that are in the schools. And I guess the best way to answer that is when I started back in '95, roughly, I didn't have, within a few years, I became an administrator, and I had it easier than these administrators and these people have, because, a lot of the factors that they have to deal with weren't there. And a lot of things that, were going on weren't there. Bigotry and hatred was always there, and that was something that we always, want to hit directly and effectively. But I didn't ever have to try to figure out how to get an ex parte order to get terrible content off of social media, and felt more powerless to do that. So that's one tiny thing that isn't meant to dismiss, the transgressions if not followed through. I mean, obviously, like I said, you need to hear it, you need to react to it, and do it effectively. But your staff are running, your community's staff are kind of like, remember that show ER? And I'm dating myself, but they're running from one thing to the next. That is how every one of these staff members feel. They are running from one thing to the next. And they are praying to God that they are able to catch and do everything that they possibly, that they can do to make sure they're doing due diligence to everybody's needs. And so, that's really what I see, and so when I have conversations about restorative practices, we'll talk about it, and someone might say back to me, but how am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to do that with, with this, and this? And we talk about how people are supposed to do that, but I think that that's what you see going on right now in schools, is people are saying that the emotional toll of feeling like you're failing all the time leads you to say, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And that's why you see the attrition in the field, because it's a thing where no one got into the field to hurt people. They got into the field to help people. And so, right now, we have lots of policies and practices and ways that they execute it. They're always receiving things, looking into and investigating and communicating with people, interacting with the state, interacting with agencies like BCF and other groups, interacting with, CSDE, state, federal agencies to, enforce, follow through, do things like that. But I think people are feeling overwhelmed. That doesn't mean that we should not do it. And so you do see people working all kinds of hours to execute that and still feel like it. So, we just want to make sure that, I think that the intention is there, and some of the policy words are there and things from the state are there, but how can we make sure that people can not feel like they're failing? And by doing that, that will actually support people, who feel like something might not be happening. Because it might be happening, it's just they might not have been able to, in a fast enough span, circle back. Because then they have 4 or 5 other things happen, So, and in a small way, this kind of draft, these guidelines, I know that not everyone will love these guidelines, but they're important, which is why I'm saying it's my job to do this. Policy needs to come, in the ways that it will, but I need to do this, whether or not you have a policy written or not. I'm doing this. So, I have to do this, and this is the right thing to do. And, I'm getting stakeholder feedback, and we're going to do everything the way that's right. But you'll notice that everything in there has a citation. It's vetted by SHIP and all of that. So these are the things we're doing, from a procedural point of view. But once this is on, out there, then we got to make sure that people have have the support to do this. So it's not just, hey, it's there, it's on paper, why aren't you doing it? We have to make sure that the PD is there, the understanding is there. And then we have to make sure people are supported when they feel like they're failing, so that they don't feel like they're failing. And I think that will make it, the most effective thing it can be for kids. Because I think what's easy to do here is really I think there's a lot of people really working to try to make things work, and I don't want to alienate any of the people who are trying to do that. At the same time, the most crucial and important thing is what our students are experiencing and what our parents are experiencing. So that has to be addressed. But I want to make sure that we're putting a love and compassion in how we're doing this to everyone, to make sure that we're all moving in that direction and we're doing it effectively and not hanging people out, making it impossible or making them want to leave, that type of thing.
Dana?
Thank you. So some things, I really appreciate this conversation. I think it's really important. I think, we're already behind the 8 ball. We've had students that have been feeling unsafe in our school environment for, one student said, 6+ years or something, and it's the same situation 6 years ago as it is today. I don't want to rush anything, but I also don't want to say, let's continue the conversation, then we're having a conversation 6 or 7 months down the road and without any resolution. Or out any structure, I should say. I definitely think my first question would be, because I have a lot of notes here, Ashley, so bear with me. My first question is, and I don't know what the rules around it are, but what is the possibility of have our student reps or student involved in our policy committee meeting conversation? Is that something that we can schedule to allow them to attend? I know there's restrictions on who can talk in a meeting or what have you, but I definitely think having our student reps input, and if I don't think they're both there anymore. I can't see the room, but I would like to hear their feedback and have them a part of the conversation. I think it's truly important. I guess that's my first question, and I'll pause for that.
Yeah, it definitely is up to each chair on how they want to run their meetings, and I obviously am, so I can take that to you and you.
You hit the nail on the head, Madam Chair. The subcommittee level, the rules aren't nearly as strict as they are here. First of all, the student reps have absolutely the right to attend the committee meetings, to participate in the meetings, to speak without anything extra. You've already got that per the student rep policies. I know as far as the policy committee, I wouldn't say we regularly, but at times we do have public participation. We do have conversation back and forth. We open it up to get some of that feedback in, and this obviously is one where we'd welcome that. So Dana, you're right, and it is absolutely something that we can make happen.
So go to question number 2.
Okay, so that's awesome. So I would like to invite them because they have the pulse of what's going on in the schools and firsthand knowledge right there. So I'd really like to make that happen. A lot of the things that I heard tonight were social emotional health, safety, student experience, all of that. So what does that look like? So what are some things that we can do to ensure that happens? Some of our students, the only place that they feel safe is in our school system. So it's our job to ensure that we have all those resources for all students. And I think it's so important, but I think maybe supporting the infrastructure to truly address any of the negative behaviors, this conversation that needs to happen. And we definitely need to support our admins and staff with different time and resources. And, I heard a parent say a parent that spoke earlier that said, a lot of the educators that were involved with their student were fantastic, but didn't have the resources to know exactly what they should or what they could or should do or how to handle it appropriately. So there's that. I also think that, you know, continuing our professional development for our educators is super important. I don't know. There's just so much opportunity to do this the right way. We really need to get this one right. It's again, safety and social emotional health and our students and our staff. I mean, there's so much, so it's just such a huge conversation, such a huge topic. I can't reiterate, we have to get it right.
I think we have one last thing,
We
because
agree.
we
I know.
still have budget to talk about, and we hit after 9.
And that's the thing that I just wanted to touch base, you know, as we transition from this conversation into the next conversation, you know, this really becomes a discussion on priority. You know, the resources are not in it. To the point that Dr. Willett passionately made just a little bit ago, be it money, be it time, be it staff, all of those things are finite. So when we start looking at how we want to allocate those, what we want to do with Wednesday afternoons, we have to figure out what doesn't happen. So certain things happen. Not saying this isn't critical. I firmly believe this is, but just something that all of the conversations tie together. They're all linked. We just have to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. So at the closure of this section, we're taking this up in policy.
Absolutely.
And we will have more conversations, and I look forward to seeing what the full board will have for a policy to review. So we're all set. So let's move on to the budget.
I'm just curious, when's the next policy meeting? I was gonna ask you after.
Next time we'll wait.
Thank you. Don't need to. We'll talk. Thank you.
And I mean, if you are going to allow public participation, perhaps the communications could add a little something. Put it out there.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I said, you know, depending on if he is deciding to put the public participation onto the policy station, that communications could possibly put something out to Facebook. So
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
get the word out.
I'll use my own.
I think we may want to change agendas to include it formally here.
Yeah, we'll adjust the committee agenda.
Yeah, so that you have a space for it. And we have it in there.
But that is a policy housekeeping.
Next strategy meeting. Clean it up.
And these are the upcoming policy meetings.
Oh,
Adrian, would you take
I
a
know,
look?
I'm sorry.
Well, so when I hit plus, it goes minus, and I do not know why. But if I hit minus, it blows up for a minute, it goes. Probably has to do with me being over 50 that I can't figure it out, but
I could bring Victoria in here to talk to you about pluses and minuses.
so right now, that's it. That's about as good as I get it, but those are the next policy.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing it.
Okay, the next topic is budget.
Okay.
I'm very
So
pleased.
excited.
I am now very pleased, but we're gonna dive in because we do not have the time, so thank you all for adding this onto the agenda tonight, because we really don't have another meeting in between now and when the town has the public meeting. So I was quite distressed when I saw what the percentage was today. And I think it's really important for us to know where we're coming from, because I did not see a reduction for the insurance line, if I am correct.
The town would have to tell us that. If I haven't heard anything.
I didn't think I read anything about that. I just saw a wonderful 3. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, so there's a couple of things that I can do for, where we are right now budget wise. This is just too small to work on, so I'll just talk from my, there's a couple of things that I think I can do to help us that we've been looking at from the standpoint of budget. right now, I did talk to the transportation company and, we have a good relationship with them. We've worked hard with them. They're willing to adjust the rates for the 3 years so that obviously will balance out towards the end because the contract's a contract. But we could get 9.5% for next year, which would save us 86,000. And then another 9.5 for some special ed transport that I was able to work with them to get. So we're gonna pick up about 93,000 there. We're gonna use ERF funds to offset special education, transportation and tuition, as we talked about that as a strategy before, and now I want to employ it because obviously we're in a space where we really need to. That'd be another 200. Excess cost adjustment, the reimbursement rate is going up to 85% for us, which means we'll pick up 149,000, about 149,668. Heating oil, dime oil stuff, where, again, we have an excellent facilities director. We have a good relationship with the town. I asked him to help, do what he could. We have, that's another 75,000. So those make up, roughly 500,000, something. But we still have another 600,000 to achieve in order to reach 3%. And so the difficult conversation here is, what will that look like? I can get us to that point of about, 500 in, but we don't have other places really, and I'll look everywhere else I can. We'll have individual contract employees, including myself, whatever they get, I'll take. And maybe we can look at the budget and see what we can do there. That won't be a tremendous amount. Most of your people are contract and union.
Can you put up what you have? Cause I just was writing numbers down and stuff.
Yeah, it's just so small.
Just give it another shot because you're still talking 600,000. So I'm assuming librarians are gone,
let me try that.
the counselor, the middle school counselor is definitely gone. Like all of the things that we were trying to save are now out the door.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to put this spreadsheet up, which will maybe I can blow it up a little bit bigger. So I'm sorry, give me 2 seconds to get to my budget file and, but essentially what those things that were on the list prior now come back into play, under the circumstances. So, in order to reach that reduction, we would be talking about what we would do to achieve that if nothing else happens. So yes, essentially. The short answer is yes.
Okay, so we're looking at cutting librarians?
So going back to
Middle school, yeah, you're pretty much a middle school counselor. You're looking at the team leads.
I'm trying to get this. See, the thing about this that's weird is I try to blow it up and okay, here we go.
Am I going too missing?
Well. Okay, so here we are. Transportation, I talked about these, but then as you're that'll get you to that 500 point, but then you're back talking about potentially, reductions such as, the math coach, the leap coach, counselor, these liaisons, all of these, if I took everything, we'd still have to find 66,000. So all of that, if everything there goes, including, the 500,000 that we picked up from transportation and special ed offset and excess cost and oil, all of that, plus all of this, we are still $66,000 away from getting to that 3% figure. And so what I'm saying here is I will do everything else I can. I'll look at individual contract employees like myself, I think they need to have something because the consumer prices and things like that are going, we have to do something. But I can look at 1% for them, and maybe that or less for myself and just see what that makes up. But that we're not a big group of people. That's not going to make up, that might make up the 66 or a little less than that. So,
Can you just go make it minimal just a little bit so that the amounts are attached with There we go. That's it. All you have to do is one.
I don't know how people say it. So, you know, if I
And there was no talk of any sort of adjustment for insurance, because then we really need to dig into the insurance piece, because I'm not gonna let go of all of this when we really haven't circled the insurance piece that they just refuse to really talk about, even in the joint meeting.
We did
Yeah.
say that they were gonna visit it again mid-March.
Have a discussion that needs to take place right now.
Well, right now, the council's, you know, they're going through their process.
They're just soon.
They want to do something that passes at referendum, you know, so that conversation is occurring. How they fund this is going to be up to them, you know, how they decide to move forward with their, you know, their way of achieving the budget. You know, it doesn't all have to come from one place or another. I think they're working to be creative, but right now, the information we have is that the budget allocated to the board would be at 3%. And I have to operate on what we have in front of us for percentage, you know. I'm hoping, you know, that something changes here.
It's just such a kicker. Here we are talking about everything. And it's like,
Same
it's, you know, TMS counselor gone.
We're gonna take
Like,
away
it's
support,
just-
sleep,
Yeah.
math
It
coach.
it's just
Look at the
unbelievable.
emails we received from students about the librarians and
Yeah.
the amazing educators and supports that they give so many of our students, you
And
know?
the thing to think about here just is, you know, if you have to find that other 600, 700, you know. That if this is the Sophie's choice piece, so if it's not this group, you know, this, then what is, you know, then it's this, and you know, so. You know, there's nothing there that we want to have reduced, and probably there's nothing else that you would want to see reduced either. You know, that type of thing, and there's nothing that breaks my heart more than, you know, like skills for adolescents. I really worked to bring that thing back. I mean, we got the grant, we funded it, you know, I taught the class for a semester so we could get the grant. I taught
Yes, you did.
84 kids in 4 sections every other day,
And they all
so
said
we
they
could
had
get the grant, you know, and you know, and then, you know, we were able to get, you know, the grant funded position for a couple of years, and now it's off grant, it's getting operating, and you know, we might lose it, which breaks my heart too, you know. And again, you know, what you do there is if somebody's leaving a position, then you're not, at the very least, you're not taking it from someone else. You're not leaving a family without, you know, without income. And so that's what's going on there, is that there is a resignation from that job, you know. And if you had to make the cut, at least you're not taking somebody out of life.
You have to tap her. I just wanna see what exactly we're losing again. Cause I just, you know,
These things are going to create the waterfall effect of the problems that are going to be created from losing these things. I mean, we're going to lose teachers. We're talking about retention issues, you know, based on the email that we've gotten and board members are questioning. We're going to lose teachers because understand, pay is a giant piece of retention. And we're going into contract negotiations with teachers again in the summer. These things are going to come up.
You know, and the other thing is, this is just a perfect storm for us because the pandemic is, you know, the pandemic is, you know, heading in a direction of resolution. From the standpoint of all the other stuff we had to do, but the learning loss and the struggles, they're real, they're documented in all kinds of literature. You know, the rates of RSRBI services are up, special education services are up, and you know, designations are up. You know, so for instance, I wouldn't want the grade leader, team leader, curriculum liaisons to go, you know, those stipends to disappear. I didn't put them in the superintendent's proposed, you didn't have them in the Board of Ed. That $200,000, you know, what is that then? You know, because we can't go down in special educators, can't go down in interventionists, can't go down in core staff. You don't have room in the UA cycle because that would destroy that, and then you don't have the rotations. We already are barely squeezing, you know, keeping that skills for adolescents, you know, that counselor that you know, what I would do is try to either give somebody a stipend, or I would go back in and teach it in the mornings again, just to have it, because that is an important class. You know, we're all willing to do things to keep these things in place, but
But here's the problem, like, say you go in the morning, I mean, your plate's already full, right? Now you're taking away the counselor, yes, they're teaching class, but they're also there for the students, so now it's like a double-edged sword. That, you know, you're not gonna be counseling students, but you'd be teaching the class, but once again, like, your plate's already full. So going into teaching, I know that you would do it to do whatever you can for the district, but like. Reasonably, like, you're losing out on a teacher and the counselor position. So it's more.
Right, and I guess what I'm saying here is like, we'll do everything I can to find alternatives, but it's a challenge. If we have to make up 600, 700, 800,000, you can find the 500 to 600,000 of it, but beyond that, there really is no, thing. And the other piece we have to be careful about is we can't choose something that seems easy just because it looks like that, for instance, that might be tempting to go after, those paras that are unfilled, but the reality is we have been, and Suzanne Waterhouse and many have been working really hard to make us get to a much better position from a staff perspective than we've been, and we are much better than we were. We've made a lot of progress, but those positions have been, built by substitutes and others while we're trying to fill them. That means there's human beings in there doing those things. We can't pretend that that's not the case and just cut those, because then we would have to rehire many of these people for IEP, PPT things anyway. And the thing is, that looks easy, right? We take it and there's money there, but then we spend that anyway because we have to, because I can't say no to IEPs and nor would I want to, frankly. And so that makes us next year already negative. Like, we start knowing we're going to be in the hole because we're going to have to be doing these things. And that means you may actually have layoffs if we don't face the tiger now and figure out what we're going to do with it, whether it's, something working with the council or whatever, then next year that artificially presents a situation because we may have to reduce staff as we're going in the year. So we're not cash negative at the end because we had to bring back things that we pretended weren't actually going to be needed. So, that's dangerous, and we have to be careful of that temptation. I was talking to another person today, I said, "We'll just cut all your supplies." Well, that doesn't, you can't cut all the supplies. I think they were kind of joking, but they said, ask all the parents in town to bring a ream of paper to the school. So, if I send home an email asking every parent to bring a ream of paper to the school and we're not going to buy paper, that's an equity issue because not everybody can afford a ream of paper, but in real terms, that's not how that's going, you can't do that, so, and the law says you have to actually provide, the resources so that the kids can effectively be given their, free and appropriate public education. So, this is it. We're at the grind place here now. You've done a lot. We were able to come up with 660,000 of things that didn't, involve people, between me going back to the transportation company and using ERF and, and looking at the energy and dime oil and all that. And we've made all the efforts to get to that point, but that where we're left is about 600,000 to go,
So the transportation conversation, and then I recognize and applaud the work that you've already done to try to, scrape some of this out. But I'm worried about what happens if we kick that one down the road. I mean, we know some of the grants are going to go away next fiscal year. It sounds like we're betting that the insurance drops enough to compensate for the additional. I guess, and I'm not articulating it well, but are we just making it even more difficult to get a better budget next time?
Well, the answer to that in that area is yes. It's just you have a particularly bad year this year because you're facing new transport contract, massive insurance increase, the bargaining unit kind of implications, even though you did a wonderful job of negotiating and your bargaining units accepted, fair but modest compensation. They're not way up there. They're not, at the lowest point, but they're definitely not way up there, as you can tell from the data that we've shown. So you've been responsible there. You just got a perfect storm. And it would be terrible to not have any flexibility at all this year and have it really impact your staff and your service capacity.
But do you
because
predict,
of an anomaly.
do you predict it getting better the next?
Well, all I can really say is if I looked at, and again, COVID throws a wrench in this. When I look at the data, you have a peak every, say, 3 years.
In the insurance?
You literally have like, 1, 2, 3, bang, 1, 2, 3, bang. So every about like third to fourth year, you do have this burst up in for whatever reason. I can't, you might need an actuarial to explain that one, but it's every 3 or 4 years, you have this, high peak and then it comes down. You're facing that high peak again. So, I think that there is data evidence to show that this is a blip. I don't know how long of a blip, and I think I fully support and understand. Lisa Hancock, very smart, knows what she's doing. Like Wilkinson, they're there, and of course Brian, I trust him. I think they're looking at how to best navigate it, but I do think that there's some sound judgment in looking at all of the things that is within the realm of the board and the council to look at to try to avoid having a 1 year kind of terrible year actually have many years of negative impact if we had to reduce all of these people. So I am encouraged that I think they're working hard to find ways of doing it.
Well, back on this insurance kick, okay? Because I really feel like something has to give with this insurance. So if you're saying that every 3 years it kind of turns into a blip, is it not being funded well enough that like all of a sudden this like bubble comes to burst and then it bubbles again burst? Like if it's a trend for every 3 years, I mean, I don't think someone gets sick like every 3 years.
Well, remember, you're actually the self-insurance program you have has saved you from so much because the last 5 years you've had zeros for 3. And that's not something everybody experiences. That's something that has been made possible by the excellent self-insurance program you have. And a lot of people will work very hard to maintain. So it's not that, it's just you had a terrible claims year. Claims are higher than we've seen them in a long time, if ever. Frankly, it's one of your bigger blips. But that does make some rational sense because I had hip surgery I didn't do because I got rejected in the emergency room, right? Like I remember that. I got kicked out. And a lot of people, things like that happen to them. They went for surgeries, they went for things, and that did not happen. So guess what's happening now? Everybody's going to do that. There's these things happening because people didn't get to do it then. So that does make some rational sense, right? So if we have a every 3 year blip or so, plus we add to it the factor that people that were not able to do elective things are doing them and other things, it did make some sense that there's maybe some maneuverability here. Having said that, I trust our town partners. I think they're probably looking at their options. I would hate to see this end this way for us. I would hate to see $600,000-$700,000 of staff reduction because that I've lived through that. I know our staff has lived through that. Highly demoralizing. It does impact everyone the way you've said. People do lose. They think, well, maybe I need to go find a place that's more stable. And I lived through years of this. Those of us around long enough lived through some of the most impactful years of this, and you're losing, 20 in a year, and then using another one back, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And then the state budget crisis where we had to, use the same budget. So we had to make a reduction in staff. People sometimes point to this artificial 17, 18 year and say, look, there's your FTE. But the reality, you look the year before, you look the year after, you recovered from that because you were given the same, budget, but you had, the next year increased costs and it naturally resulted in RIF. So, people, there's all kinds of ways to kind of, look at it. But having said that, this could potentially be one of the most damaging years in your recent history, and it has all the negative reverberating effects you're talking about. So, I think that there's a process playing out. Again, I trust our partners, our municipal partners and the council working hard to try to find a way to not have that happen to your district school system. And it is ironic that we're talking about it, this on the tails of the conversation we just had, because this is all part and parcel of the same thing. These people that I told you are running around, they'll be running around more, And that's part of the real regret here. That doesn't mean that we can't and shouldn't do things. It's just that that's what you're seeing. People trying really hard and it does impact them the way that you would imagine it.
So I'm gonna be honest. And here it goes. This is very unappealing, especially after the conversation we just had an hour ago, especially after the conversation, Dr. Willett, you were present for this conversation. The Mental Health and Substance Abuse Task Force presented the Wayland presentation right here at the church just the other day, week about mental health and substance abuse in both youth and adults. The fact that we have expressed countless times now that this stuff is needed. The children have expressed this stuff is needed. Parents have expressed this. Teachers, retired teachers have expressed this stuff is needed. And it's getting to a point where I feel like all of that's being ignored. So I'm gonna ask a procedural question. Where does the town manager start in putting his board recommending, or I know this wasn't his recommendation, but for that 3 number, that number, because to me, that number just looks like a number. It doesn't involve a plan behind it. It doesn't involve staff behind it. It doesn't involve students behind it. I want to know where we're getting this 3 number from and why we're getting it. I get it, because we don't want to raise this and do that. I think that's a nonsense argument. I think we need to focus on the kids who are coming to us begging for help instead of hoping and praying in a year or 2 from now that help arrives from somewhere. We'll get it from left field at the 3rd row. It's not going to happen. So do we take initiative? Or do we accept the same 10-year pattern that we've been following for the last decade? I don't know if I had a question in there, but that's how I feel. Well, I think this is a very tiring.
Take initiative and do what?
Well,
Take initiative, because, I mean, I recognize your frustration, Jed. I just, where I'm sitting is the town manager using whatever process he did. You know, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've been talking to him about that. Pushed forward and said, 3% is what I'm going to give the board. And, you know, understanding that it's got to go through the council, it's got to go through the referendum, it's got to go through a whole bunch of steps. But looking forward, pretending that 3% is what they turn and they give us. What initiative are we supposed to do? I mean, right now, we can obviously go, we can
More than
talk to
we're
the
doing
council,
now.
we can talk to the town, we can do that kind of stuff. But it's not like we're gonna mine our own money.
well, and to, you know, I also think that, again, in all processes, you know, I want to be fair in how I'm talking about it. I think to the town manager's credit, the 3% is higher than what we've gotten for many years, you know, so to his credit, I think he's trying to provide something that, you know, a meaningful figure. It's not a 2, it's not a 1, and it's not a 0.84, and it's not a 0, and we've had all of those. You know, the thing about it is that's poignant that many of you have actually, you know, have recognized, and this is a bad year, right? And why, you know, we want to try to be careful not to let a blip year like this, when you have a lot of factors coming together, you have transportation, insurance, and a lot of other things, impact your district for, you know, 5 years to a decade more because of the reductions that had to be made, when there's other mechanisms that could be utilized during this particular year to offset what could be just a, you know, an anomaly year, or, you know, even if it's following the pattern, say that is followed, if it's every 3rd or 4th year, you're in one of these storms. It makes sense to use all available, or to use your available mechanisms to offset that storm, take the edge off it so that the impact doesn't have a 5-year or 10-year impact on your entire system. You know, so that, I think that's where the council is at now, is just trying to figure out. That doesn't mean taxes have to go up, you know, it could mean other mechanisms of accomplishing that, and I think they're working hard to figure that out, and I know town staff are probably thinking about these things. And that's where it's at. That's why it's good to engage, you know. The next meeting, where they're talking about the Board of Ed budget is March 20th. You know, if you're interested, showing up, you know, and engaging at that point, they talk about it. You know, but I think that's the thing, you know, we don't want to let this year that has that massive insurance increase for us create such a damaging impact that for the next 5 years, you're reeling from it. When there's there may be some ways to avoid that. And that's what, you know, I think they're probably working through now. You know, trust that they're trying to find a way.
So to answer Tony, your question about how can we take initiative, I think we support the budget. Because we can't have it both ways. We're not supporting a budget that keeps these things, then we're saying we're okay with taking those things away. I'm not okay with taking those things away. Our students need them. We've heard from students, we've heard from parents, we've heard from teachers, we've heard from us. We've heard from our superintendent. We need to support the things that our students need and not talk about, and not talk about, but over the number. And then the second thing I wanted to say is, I mean, the reality of it is, Dr. Willett, is that, and I think we've discussed this over and over again, but the budget you presented us was a fiscally responsible budget. We've talked about all of the reasons why, you just did again, why this was a difficult year and an anomaly in a lot of ways. We've also talked about all of the things that you didn't add to the budget, the 38 positions that you were requested, the other things that were taken away before we were even given the 5.9 number. You know, can you just reaffirm that the budget presented is a fiscally responsible one?
There were $1 million in reductions prior to even getting to the budget that you were at, you know, and you're really being hit hard by the circumstances of this particular year. So yes, I mean, there's nothing, you know, everything that's in that budget is important for people, for children and community. So yes, but you know, again, this is in my career here, I've never seen an impact as big as this for, say, insurance. You're dealing with a big tidal wave. Tidal waves, you know, by their nature, are not constant. So again, you know, it's about how you weather the tidal wave without leaving your island devastated. You know, what's the way to do that? But yeah, this board has done due diligence. You know, that's why I'm surprised to hear sometimes, you know, any statement that you didn't. You had the workshops, you had the rotation activities, you walked around and met with all the administrators and all the call center people, you talked to them, you know, for hours. You know, you extended many different questions. You've met with me individually. You've reached out in many directions on your own. I don't know any one of you that has not spent a very large amount of time in your own domain and way, really working in due diligence on this. And I really compliment all of you for doing that. You know, you've made me work harder than I've ever worked in my, you know, whole career. And that's true of all of you, not one of you, all of you. You've all done that, which is to your credit. You've really done the due diligence. So, you know, and you've done everything you can. Now where we're at right now is, you know, we're facing the tidal wave. And what happens after the tidal wave is important here. You know, what kind of rebuilding are you going to do from that tidal wave? Are we going to have the opportunity to have a fighting chance not to have it have 5 to 10 years of reverberating effects? Or are we going to be in a situation where you have 5 or 10 years of impacts from what happened in this year? And if you have an opportunity to avoid that, go through the tidal wave and avoid the 5 to 10 year impacts, and I hope that materializes. And I do, again, I have faith that there's a process here. I think you have people working hard to look at that and to not have that tidal wave, have that 5 or 10 years.
I was like, someone had their hand up.
I just wanted to say that I think this is a huge loss for our district and a huge loss for our students. And I think we would all be remiss to not say that this is a definite loss, and we're going to feel it. As Jen said, I think the students are either directly or indirectly going to feel it. The staff is going to definitely directly feel it. Our administrators are going to feel it. And I think we as a board should think about what we are handing to next year's board. What are we passing forward? Because we're going to have to go through this process again next year and understand that this is a loss. This is going to hurt. And repairs are expensive.
twice as expensive as they originally.
I mean, unfortunately, if you can't put things in place the right way, then something's gonna break, and then you have to fix it when it's broken. It's more costly than being preventative. And I mean, that's just the way our system is, which is so unfortunate in so many levels. It's a systemic problem that we're just kind of picking up things after they've broken, not doing preventative maintenance or preventative care. And our school system deserves it. I feel really sad about this outcome. I'm actually heartbroken about it. And that's why I supported the budget as we presented it, because I really can't get behind cutting these things. I don't know where we're gonna cut $600,000. How are we gonna do that? And I know, Dr. Willett, I have complete trust and faith in you that you'll come up with ideas that are thoughtful and as least impactful as possible. But, I mean, I just think this is a big bummer and a big bummer for next year too. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer about it.
Well, I think following up on that, I think all the people that sent emails, like the retired teachers, the support for the keeping the librarians, the lead physicians, all the emails and all the people that we've heard from really need to email the town manager and email the town council. Because it's, you know, yes, we are the board, but they need to hear from others as well. And, you know, we had a lot of people come in and talk, and maybe they really need to hear that, because these librarians, they're gone. Like, it's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is where we're at, you know? So I just feel like that is a important piece of the puzzle that, you know, maybe perhaps they really need to hear from others in town. So the retired teachers, the staff that came to talk to us, all the students that wrote about the librarians and what they meant to them, like, have them write in to the town manager and the town council. And I mean, I'm really, this whole insurance piece, like, that's what I'm having a very tough time with. I'm having a very tough time with that. So, you know, something's got to give, and we're losing a lot of staff that after we just had this conversation with everything, and then this is where we're at. So, I know Dana had her hand up. Dana?
Do you have to make a motion?
Oh, yeah. Dana, I will entertain a motion to go past 10.
Okay, a motion to go past 10.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, voting.
Aye.
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 Lauren said aye, Dana said aye, and I'm aye as well. So we are unanimous and going past 10. So just so you have that. Dana, go with.
So sorry, everything's dying on me tonight, so bear with me. To say I'm disheartened or upset about this is to say the least. The reality of it is I think that we talk about like the kids, and again, what Jaden said tonight is all true. You know, I'd say ditto to what Jaden said. How are we going to, you know, impact our school system positively? We just had students and parents and folks from out of town, you know, say we need all these resources and we need to help support their students in school and all the students in school. And now there's, I don't know, $600,000. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I guess I go back to like Katie Murray's been sending us emails for forever, and God bless her and what she's doing for her students and her children. But I mean, if we, with the budget we have currently, we can't even get the TMS staffing correct. And we've had several of our teammates attempt to advocate for that. But then, you know, now we're going to stretch our staff even that much more thin when we're already short in places. And I get hindsight's 2020, but the reality of it is we all should have stood united and supported the dang budget at the town council meeting. Whether you voted against it or you voted for it, it's not our job to say, this is why I voted yes, and this is why I voted no. This is our budget as a Board of Ed. Get freaking behind it. We need to support the budget because the budget's for our schools and we can't say we don't support the budget and then in another thing say I support getting more staffing in the middle school. Like, we just can't do that. We can't say we support the budget, but then say our educators get paid well or don't get paid well, and they need to do this. Like, we can't speak out of both sides of our mouths. Like, we need to be, if we need to support the budget. We're the Board of Education, and we landed upon a budget, whether people agreed with it or not. That's what was presented to the town council. And we had a vote. You have a vote. It's in the minutes. But then we go there and we support, whether we supported the budget in the vote or not. That was our budget, and that was our job to come in united to support that budget. But we didn't do that. So now here we are. So what do we do with this going forward? Well, now I will go back to the Miss Grottons of the world. One of our best educators in the system left our school system, still in the prime of her career, to go to another school system that quote unquote valued her and paid her more. We're going to, because of this, and I mean, this is just me just stating the obvious. Because of this, we're going to lose a big part of our educational system here in Tolland, period. I don't know what kind of magic you're going to pull out of your hat, Dr. Willett. I don't know how many rabbits you got in there, but I'm scared for our students. I'm scared for our students. And I will tell you, they definitely don't have the same education as last year. They don't have the same education as 5 years ago. They definitely don't have the same education as 10 years ago. And one of our peers said, well, let's talk about all the things we threw in, that we added in. We added Chromebooks. We added the technology. Yes, we did do that. And we are funding that, thanks to TEPTO and their generous donation, thanks to other donations that we had, and thanks to grants and different things. These are things that we can't ignore the obvious. We can't ignore the obvious. We are the Board of Education, and I'll go back to day one of me being on the Board of Education. In the first meeting, and Andy Powell said, you guys will be the guardians of education. We have not been the guardians of education as a united team. And I'm devastated. I am dumbfounded. I am godsmacked. I don't even know what words I can say, because I'm going to go on my pedestal, my podium right now. And this isn't going to get us anywhere. But I will say that we need to figure out what we're going to do. And with Dr. Willett's, whatever he's going to present us and what he does present us, we need to do our best to help support that, and help support our staff, and help support our administration, and help and support our students that called us to action today. How are we going to do that? Is all I'm going to say. And I know I need to go to bed at night and look in the mirror and say, you know what, I did what I could for what I'm supposed to do. And I stood up, and I stood up. And this is a slap in the face. I feel like we need a town budgeting class for everybody on what we need to do, but we are literally ripping the artery out of our school system. And I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't have anything positive to say other than I got to listen to Jen Gallichan and say support, 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 and advocate and advocate and advocate. And I have Jen in my ear, and I'm going to continue to do that. And I hope that we can do that united, because that's what we really need to do. If we're Board of Education members, we need to be united.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I want you as a board to feel and understand for your own edification is, I think you have worked hard. I think you're trying. Again, you're starting to get, you're not starting, but I think you feel what people are feeling here. You're trying your hardest, and sometimes, despite your hardest efforts, think, what you want to have happen, you start to see something negative happening. So I just want to kind of cover a couple things here. I've heard this notion that you've added. So I want to address that for you. You have, again, roughly, let's just estimate, 202, 209, depending on your kind of grant status teachers. And the concept here of, you've added. Okay. So you have a LEAP program, you have a TTA program, you have an ABA program, you have these programs. Yes, you have these programs, but you don't have more teachers. You have teachers working those programs. So you have less teachers. And the thing to keep in mind is, if you didn't have those programs, you'd have even less teachers than you have, because the cost avoidance those programs create. What you have been doing is putting holes in the side. You've been, filling the holes in the side of the boat so you don't sink. You bought the cork. It doesn't mean that it's a whole new thing. It's a cork for the hole. So for instance, LEAP provides lots of cost avoidance for you. Out of the 30 kids, 10 were out of there, you have million more underwater. You'd have to cut 20 more people to cover that differential. You have LEAP, so you provide the best programming for kids, but also so it's cost avoidance. Is it a new thing? Yeah, it's saving you $1 million, right? So it's not a new thing that is adding on top. It's a new thing that you're putting a cork in the hole so you don't sink. It's a new thing. You know, these job classifications, your curriculum supervisors, when I first came here, you had all of them plus a social studies person, but you paid teachers at their highest end of their contractual rates, a stipend beyond that. So they made pretty much the same thing your admins made, but they could do 0 evaluations. So you were actually getting gypped. You were paying them almost the same thing, but they did 0 evaluations and they couldn't pull the weight. And with all the state's requirements now, PPTs having to be chaired by an administrator that takes, you know, that's 200 PPTs in a building that takes that admin out. You needed the admin's time to be freed up. So now we got people in there, curriculum coordinators replaced by curriculum supervisors for about the same amount of money, and they could do evaluations. So that offset the PPT impact of having people have to do the chairing for all the PPTs, plus 100 other things that have happened that have taken away, you know, because of mandates, the time in a variety of other ways. That's not really an ad. In fact, in that time, you lost your social studies coordinator, you lost your curriculum supervisor. Those are losses, and they're not just world language. And I can go on and on about this if we really want to. Let me see if I can pick apart something else. Oh yeah, your chief operating officers, you're paying them about the same as you did before. You got a pretty good deal out of your chief personnel officer because you're modestly paying her about 40,000 more, admitted. You do pay her 40,000 more. She took on a tremendous amount more responsibility, so you didn't need an assistant superintendent. So, you know, I mean, let's get real here. You've actually made lateral changes with modest price impacts to avoid massive over expenditures for not being able to cover the cost avoidance of having massive things like, you know, more outplacements. Your program stuff has been changes to maintain order. You really have not added. Now, I will grant that your Chromebooks, I would say, are the thing that maybe is the newest piece of that. And that was because of COVID and you had grants that provided that originally. But even when you look at something like the technology of Chromebooks, you know, you all see it yourselves, that the society is transitioning from paper to these electronic methods of getting these things done. They are superior actually to the textbooks, but that's not unique to your district. You either do that or, you know, your kids will not be competitive because it's all about sharing the documents now. It's all about the collaborative work that the technology allows. Most of the materials today, they've started segueing from the actual paper stuff to the online multimedia products. And most of the things that are helping our kids in Tolland right now with their reading have not, you know, are these programs that actually, you know, tailor it to the reading level so that they can make one teacher who's overwhelmed with 25 kids in your grade 4 class be able to differentiate the reading instruction effectively to the best of her or his ability or their ability, because they have a program that can actually help them. Otherwise, they would have to go find all those books at all those different levels. And guess what? Your library has been underfunded for years and probably doesn't have enough to cover every kid that way. So you need the technology to do it. So let's get real. I can talk about how, you know, this notion that you haven't. You are in a lateral position. You have created programs that offset massive losses because these programs avoid your outplacements. These programs are cost avoidance programs that are basically you purchased a cork. You're right, the cork's the new thing. The hole, also a new thing you just filled with that cork. Did you really add to your district by purchasing the cork, or did you just save your boat? Your LEAP, your TTA, you know, your programs like that saved your boat, guys. That's what it did. So when I see, you know, this notion that you've added, let's talk about the details of that, shall we? Let's go into it in depth, because, you know, we'll show that as a glass house if we really go deep enough into it. So you've done a good job. You know, this district is doing everything it can not to cost the, you know, Tolland taxpayers more. You're in a tough year. It comes around every, you know, 3-4 years. Again, I have all the faith that, you know, that your partners, council side, you know, and that the municipal partners, they're working to try to find a way to make this tidal wave not have, a terrible reverberating effect. And let's, let's engage. Let's see what's going to happen as we go through this in the next couple of weeks.
Just really quick. I just want to clarify, and Dr. Willett, I appreciate everything you just said. I just want to clarify something. I'm extremely grateful, having gone through about a year and a half, but I'm extremely grateful to every town council member. I'm extremely grateful to the new town manager that has joined our town. I don't know when that was, but recently. And so I want to make sure that's not mistaken. I appreciate everyone's energy toward this because it's exhausting. It's tiring. There's a lot that goes into it. Everything that was said though tonight, however, my position is still not changed. I think this is a very disappointing reduction compared to the original, technically, reduction that was proposed. And that's sort of where I stand. I just wanted to clarify again. I think everybody should be grateful for the work that goes into these things, and that includes me. So there's that clarification.
Okay. I mean, I definitely think that we've had quite the conversation. I do want to keep our meeting moving. We still have a vote. Any other last minute quick comments? Seeing none. Thank you all for entertaining this conversation tonight, even though it was not on the agenda. We added it last minute due to the time of discussing this. Let's move on to the committee and liaison reports. I heard mental health over here. Who wants to go?
Yesterday, no, what's today? Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Monday, we had a meeting Monday, discussed a couple of things, including sort of the next plans, which aren't much. But there is a recommendation going into the town council from the task force that is related to the Board of Education, and it directly impacts actually the exact topic we were just discussing. So I'll be interested to hear if the council shares that with us, how that process unfolds. But that's sort of all the discussion was about this Monday.
And there was a discussion about the future of
In the future of the task
committee,
force,
yeah, the task force and how often we meet going forward. Okay.
likely looking at, but I think there's a pretty once a month meeting schedule moving forward.
Or meet as needed as well.
Policy did not meet, correct?
We met, did we talk already about what we had in that meeting?
I can't.
Then tell you what, I'll be brief.
Go for it.
Remember either,
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I
I'm
can't,
sorry.
yeah, I can't.
I know we met, I just don't remember if we met here since then.
Two policies.
Yep, I know.
Go for it.
Okay, so we discussed at that point in that meeting, two policies. One was the consideration of school activity funds policy update. The second one being the discussion on the need for an emergency action plan for interscholastic and intramural athletic events, in light of what's going on in the NFL and some of those. We thought that, there was certainly a need to be a little more specific as far as on the local level, what our plans would be. What came out of that was, ask for Dr. Willett to go in and do a little bit more wordsmithing and some examples. And then we put it back on the agenda for, some tweaking and then possibly vote. So nothing to bring up to this level yet, but definitely some efforts and some good direction.
Okay. Communications.
We talked about more state mandates. They seem to be flowing. But we really tried to nail it down, and Dr. Willett is going to prepare a letter that we can send to legislature. We're going to look at that draft in the next communication meeting, and then obviously bring it to the board after that. We're going to focus more on the process than the individual candidates themselves.
That'll be interesting to see.
And then we began pair negotiations. You say that, right? And then I can give a really quick PTO update just because we
Can you
have,
give me a positive of some
yeah,
sort?
we haven't done it in a long time, so. I, luckily for everyone, I talk really fast. So, TEPTO, the recent events such as the kindness signs, staff appreciation at both schools and the fourth grade dance were all very successful events. They also recently purchased math timers for the TIS classrooms, and they are working on planning, school assemblies. As you know, they fund a lot of those as well. The Butter Braid fundraiser closed on March 6th. Pickup is on April 3rd at BGP from 3:30 to 6:30. Always a fun pickup. Go pick up your butter braids. We don't have freezer space for them. This year for butter braids, there was also an option to buy dry soup to be donated to the Tolland Food Pantry. So I just wanted to point that out because I thought that was really great. The upcoming book fairs, TIS will be the week of 3/20. TIS is the week of May 15th. Also, stay tuned for forthcoming info on the spring social. Save the date for May 19th at Birch Grove for that. As well as the opportunity to order school supply boxes for next year, which will be shipped free directly to your home. TMS PTO recently finished up their annual Munson's fundraiser. They're still selling TMS Falcon Spirit Wear, and you can find that store link in the digital backpack. I've also seen it on Facebook. And they are planning a spring teacher appreciation event. Boosters, Tolland Boosters are hosting a cookie decorating class at the high school March 20th from 6 to 7:30. Cost is $40, age is 13 and up, and the deadline to sign up is 3/13. Then they're hosting a bracelets and beverages fundraiser on Monday, April 24th from 6 to 8 at the Stafford Brewery, Stafford Ciders. I wrote Stafford Cidery.
I think it's.
I wrote Stafford Ciders, or maybe my correct. The cost is $35, and you can find the info on the Boosters Facebook page. Please also save the date for the annual cornhole tournament on 5/20. The registration will begin on 4/1. And that's it.
Well, at least it seems like a lot of positives going on in the school system. If there's no one else that I'm missing, right, and Cora, I don't believe so. I think we have a couple of members, so I'm not gonna go. That's it.
Yeah.
I can't, I gotta be honest, I just, it's. Okay, thank you, guys. I don't have really anything to report out, but I am depressed with this budget, so.
You did have one item of board action.
Well,
Oh, to cancel them.
We're not doing that. So.
well, yeah, we have board action, we have L1.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying for the chairperson's report, I am depressed,
Okay.
okay?
Well, that's not my big question. So I'll say the union.
Okay, board action, so I'll entertain a motion to cancel the April 12th.
Motion to cancel the April 12th meeting, 2023.
And Galashan second. Any discussion prior to voting? Seeing no hands, seeing nothing, we will go ahead and vote. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah.
Aye.
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 Dana,
Aye.
Christina?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, therefore with majority, we are canceling the April 12th meeting. I would just like to still say with board members that, keep those Wednesdays open, be packing them up, just in case. Okay, at this point, we will do public participation again, 2-minute time limit, comments must be limited to the items on the agenda, once again. I will welcome anyone in the room to the Mr. Owl over here, and anyone online, you can raise your hand. Once again, please state your name and your address, because a lot of people forget about that, but everyone was so good. Everyone remembered when they're doing it. I was thumbs up on that. Yeah, you have 2 minutes with the timer. Yeah, he's gotta get the timer off. I'll keep going, okay. So yes, everyone did a wonderful job keeping the name and address for the records for Lisa to type up her wonderful notes, because she does a great job. We're ready, okay, come on up.
I'm Lisa Day-Lewis, I live at 63 Tolland Green. And thank you all for tonight's discussion. It was very enlightening in many ways. My comments tonight are all things that came out of the discussion. The first thing I'd like to say in response to Jennifer, your question and query about the bullying and harassment policy. I do think that was a very good idea that be looked at again because due to the nature of the bullying that's going on in the school, I don't think that teachers and staff and administration are able to identify it as bullying. When somebody makes use of the use of pronouns for a queer kid, that might, I know it happens in the class and the teachers, they don't know to identify it as bullying behavior. And that was one of the things that happened a lot with my son and that caused him to feel really uncomfortable in class. And my son is a brilliant student. He is very, he likes to be engaged in class. He likes to be engaged in conversations, but he has pulled back significantly due to the climate. And he doesn't participate in certain things because of the way he feels that he will be perceived and the things that he feels that will happen due to him participating. I want to move on from that piece because I see the timer. I want to encourage students at the Tolland School, based on what Dr. Willett said about restorative practices, look into forming a student-run juvenile review board at your school. You can do that. I've worked in schools as a guidance counselor where there have been student-run juvenile review boards, and they are a very, very efficient way of dealing with climate. And you can be instrumental in not just changing behavior, but changing the hearts of the bullies. And you can really make a great change in your student climate at all levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Tom. Okay, you ready? Katie Murray, go ahead with the.
Katie Murray, 8 Lisa Lane. I am making this comment as a member of our town council. I would thank Dr. Willett for the information he gave today. And I'd like to reiterate the question to the Board of Education. Is the budget that was passed by the Board of Ed fiscally responsible? Is there fluff? Is it frivolous? Are there extra pencils in there that can still be cut? What cuts can the Board of Education make that won't cost the town more money down the road? I heard the numerous board members as well as Dr. Willett state that some of these cuts that you might consider would cost more money in future years. How do we prevent that from happening, or is there not any options? And again, do we need to look at paper clips and pencils to be cut, or have all those cuts already been made? Having the answers to those questions would help me, and I think the remaining members of town council as we start our budget deliberations, which our deliberations start really today with the release of the town manager's recommended budget. We go through the same process you do, and those discussions haven't really started in earnest yet, but they're about to. So having answers to those questions would be very helpful to me and to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine McDonald, 47 Shinipsit Lake Road. I want to express my gratitude for everyone on the board taking the community's concerns about LGBTQIA policies and bullying seriously, and for calling out specifically the inadequacies of the bullying policy at present. I think we have a lot of work to do to make our schools truly safe for everyone, and that doesn't just include physical barriers or the logistics that we think about when we think about school safety on a really macro level. And as we're thinking about this policy development, I also want to ask the board and everybody to plan to be brave, because Dr. Willett, you mentioned that our town's full of loving and compassionate people, but there are also people who lost their minds in early September when children were invited to share their pronouns. And there's this difficult balancing act, and we're gonna make people upset if we protect our children. And I want everyone to be ready to be brave and say, your discomfort is not worth the safety and mental health of our children, and we're not going to allow people to perpetuate bigotry to keep certain people comfortable. But that's gonna be enough, but we're gonna need to make some people upset and ruffle some feathers to keep our children safe and to truly change the climate. These policy changes are also going to necessitate involving parents and thinking about accountability. And there are some suspensions and policies in place that don't really upset children or aren't seen as negative. We also need to bring in parents and invite them to be accountable. Where are children getting these messages that it's okay to mock pronouns, to tell people to go kill themselves, and other really hateful, damaging things? And what is happening at home about that? This needs to be a really community-led effort. And it is about social and emotional well-being, not at TIS, not at Birch Grove, not at TMS or THS, but at Tolland as a whole. So I look forward to those conversations, and I hope as much information as possible is made public so we can all work together.
Thank you. Let's go online. Let's go to Tilly.
Hello, Tilly Marie, 8 Lisa Lane, pronoun she, her. It's important we look at the right questions regarding the electric battery backup in schools. Bet you didn't think I was going to bring this one up. This might be great for our schools or not worth it. Let's think about the issues we've had in the past with power outages. Many of us have generators. The schools should look for a backup to keep the kids in school, and it provides an important backup option for our community. If we have an emergency in town, it's important to have a backup power for a location that can serve as a community shelter. Listening to this conversation, I turned to my kid and said, does the school really run around unplugging and shutting off lights to reduce costs? This is an absolute embarrassment that we need to unplug and shut things off to reduce costs. Can we please fund the schools to keep lights on? It seems like the bare minimum thing to do. I'm concerned about Tolland not keeping competitive and keeping not only the best teachers, but teachers at all. Please don't fail our kids, especially these wonderful kids who spoke today. I support an increase in the school's budget that will increase positions, not eliminate them. The students who spoke today are amazing, way braver than I was at that age. It's awful they even needed to speak today. They should be safe in school. I understand the concerns of suspending students, as Dr. Willett discussed, but we are also talking safety. When putting together the LGBTQ policy, it's important to reach out to the resources. This has been done before. You're not reinventing policy. There are so many organizations that can help, including PFLAG, Tolland, Mansfield. Please look at this as a priority. I want to see the kids in Tolland safe. We don't want to wait for a push through, we don't want to wait or push through an ineffective policy to placate the folks here. Waiting could lead to much worse incidents or harm that was described today. Please put love, compassion, and acceptance in your policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Tilly. I open it back up. You would like. Okay, so let's go to Mary Rose.
Good evening, everyone. Mary Rose DeBarrick, she, her, 37 Ryan Road. Just a couple of things I wanted to say is that Dr. Willett, we are very blessed to have you as our superintendent. The way you explain things and are thoughtful and informative, we are very, very lucky. I personally probably going to try to do an audio tape of your conversation about the boat and the cork. I think a lot of people who weren't here to hear that, I think it's very important. I think our community is under a false impression that everything is okay because the lights go on. I want to thank the board members who supported this budget, not only tonight and is fighting for it tonight, but has fought for it, since the beginning and has fought for it for several years. there are several members on this board that did not fight for this budget, did not fight for it last year. Even after agreeing to the budget last year, went toward in front of the public to sabotage it, did the same thing to this budget. You should be ashamed of yourself. And it makes me really sad that people listen to you. But the folks that are champion for it and cheerleaders for it, God bless you. And I'm praying that the message that our children are number one here in the town, and that the school as a community is part of the community and important to the livelihood of everyone in our community. It's very sad. And Ashley, you know, your leadership, I appreciate it. And I'm depressed now too. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. If there is anyone else online, if you would like to raise your hand, please do so now at this point. And if not, I will be closing out the public participation for the night. Going once, going twice. Seeing that there are none, I will close out the public participation and open it up to the board members for points of information. Just out of curiosity, for the community, when something happens with the backup generator in the community shelter, Birch Grove, when that was built for such an event, correct?
Yeah, but they don't have anything that can do the capacity of something like the batteries. You know, we do have the other one, the high school is a shelter. Birch Grove is built to be that way too, but these things would greatly increase our capacity to be helpful in an emergency situation for a number of days. And you have two facilities potentially. They could do that or more if these batteries were successful and we were able to put in other places. So, you know, in most of your, your events that I've been a part of, we've used the high school as the shelter. That's been typically it, but you do have a new building where you can, there's some opportunity there. Especially,
I just thought that was, I knew the high school, but I thought when Birch Grove was built, it was designed in mind.
you have a generator, but you'd greatly increase your capacity. To do that.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say to Lisa, if you had felt like you weren't done, so I hope that you'll send your other thoughts to us.
Yeah, I do have something for the board. This morning I talked to East Con. There's a woman there who's coordinating training for LGBTQ plus efficiency in staff with districts. She's kind of picking up where True Colors left off, so I have her name and contact information. I'd love to share it with you.
Great, yeah, please keep communicating with us. And she left, and I did want to also say, I just thought that was so well stated that, others, the discomfort of others should not jeopardize the safety of our students. So I just thought that was so well put. So deserved repetition. That's it.
And True Colors was a resource, a really good one. So that having a replacement for that is really fantastic.
What's all again?
I just want to thank two people, and I want to thank everybody. First of all, but I want to thank our chair and our superintendent. You guys have very difficult jobs, and you're both in very difficult positions, and so you don't get told enough. So thank you. So, thank you. Very kind.
The other question too that came up with Needy's question too. I mean, here's the deal. Even in the original budget, which is exactly why I wanted to support what we had, we even removed the interventionist for, I forgot if it was 6th or 7th grade. I don't remember off the top of my
It's
head.
6th grade.
It was 6th grade.
6th
So
and 7th. She's really proud of it.
so in any case, that position was already removed and it wasn't even added back in. And those are the type of positions that help decrease the special ed costs in the long term. Because the interventionists are like the stop before going into special ed. So those are the 504s, and that's already gone. So that's part of the problem that I had with this budget going into this season, looking and saying, well, wait a minute here, I didn't like the original things that were out that weren't even on the discussion. So that's what part of me, I looked at this list and thinking to myself, like, well, this is not the road in the path that I would want to see our school system in. Because ultimately, we do have staff issues when they are going to other districts because they are getting paid more. They're having a different climate, different culture, the board supports them, the supports what's happening, and I don't feel like that's what's, where we're at. We really aren't. I heard enough from a lot of staff with the budget and they don't feel supported, and that's why they are leaving.
And retiring.
And retiring early, yes, retiring early. There are teachers who would stay to, till their full retirement, but you know what? Instead, they're gonna retire early and they're gonna take a job doing something else in order to make ends meet. And that's sad. That's really sad. And I see the names on when they come through and I'm like, how is she leaving? She's leaving our district. Are you kidding me? Like, these are top teachers. So coming up with this list, there's gonna be more that are gonna be gone, and that's what I had a very tough time with this season. I really did, and I still can't express myself enough to say, these are positions that are needed, and this is going to impact us greatly. And it's really sad that this is where we're at, and I do feel as though, like, all those kids that wrote in about how impactful the librarians are, the retired teachers that say, you know what? It is enough. I mean, I forgot who came here and he just looked and he's like, I've been retired, and you know what? Everyone's at the woods end. It's, yeah, Mr. Fay. Okay, Mr. Fay. I couldn't remember his name, so thank you. That they're at their wits' end and that there keeps on being more and more and more that go on to the teachers, and especially with after COVID. Like, I don't even know what else to say, but that just kind of goes to Katie's question about this budget. And like I said, I'm having a very tough time with this because these are the things I did not want to see come up on a list. That's all. I know that you were okay with cutting everything and you made that perfectly clear that you were like, oh, but we'll keep I want to say it was the counselor and there was another item. There was 2 items that you were okay with and the rest you were like, we'll figure it out. I just don't feel like being stagnant is where we need to be with our district, that we do need to move forward, that we do need to make some positive changes in order to create a better atmosphere, to keep the retention on teachers, not having them retire, not having them just go because they're getting paid. We do have a lot of loyal teachers that are either have their families in our schools, they grew up in this district, and that's why they're here. And I get a little bit upset. But I'll entertain a motion to adjourn because.
Motion to adjourn. That's it.
Any discussion? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, did they say aye on,
Aye.
Perfect, thank you. Meeting adjourned 10:30.